This portion of the program is sponsored by Cypress, the #1 in AAD technology.
Hey, and welcome back to Skydive TV. My name is Bo Reeby, and I'm happy to be here at the 2016 Skydive Museum Hall of Fame event here in Eloy, Arizona. Behind me, the inductees, the guests, the friends, and participants are arriving for this event. It's day one, it's night one. This week, we're gonna look and listen to some of the most inspirational and impactful people from the skydiving history. We're gonna talk to them, hear their stories, hear what they've done. I'm really excited. I cannot wait to hear some of these campfire stories put on camera for you to enjoy. So stay tuned with us at Skydive TV. It's gonna be a wonderful weekend. This is just day one. People are registering, getting ready for the event. Day two, tomorrow, carries on. People register more. There's gonna be some more jumping going on for these old timers that are still jumping, still kicking it. And then Saturday night we have our banquet where the new 2016 inductees are entered into the Skydive Museum Hall of Fame. Stay tuned with us all week as we're going to bring you some excellent coverage of the 2016 Skydive Museum Hall of Fame. I'm here with the one and only Colonel Joe Kittinger. Sir, tell me what this event right now in 2016 means to you.
Well, I'm an ex-jumper, former jumper, and I enjoy coming here and seeing all the people that are still jumping.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of friends here that from over the years, and I'm a member of the Parachute Hall of Fame, and we'll have a ceremony Saturday night to induct four more people into the organization. So it's a labor of love to come here to these events, and I'm really delighted to be here.
So, Colonel was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2010. You've seen a vast history of skydiving. What impresses you most about skydiving today, and what about the 2016 inductees have done in skydiving?
Well, they all contribute. Everyone in the Hall of Fame has contributed in one way or another to parachuting.
Yeah.
You know, let me just tell you that the most important thing I think in development in parachuting was the Cypress, AADs.
Okay.
That made it safe.
Yeah.
My next thought is that the next projection is going to be the next thing, exciting thing in skydiving is wingsuits. 10 years from now, nobody's going to be doing skydiving except to get ready to get into wingsuits, because that's such an adventure to be able to fly through the air. And you know, a parachute jumper, a skydiver comes down at 120 miles an hour, something like that.
Yeah.
Well, you can reduce that downward velocity by having wingsuits. So the wingsuit's the future of parachuting, I think.
You think so?
Yep.
This portion of the program is brought to you by SunPath Products, the choice of champions.
The SunPath student. SunPath quality. Skyhook equipped. Less than $2,400. See your SunPath dealer for more information or go to sunpath.com.
Hey, I'm here with Luke Akins. He did the amazing Heaven Sent jump earlier this year. Landed without a parachute, without a skydiving rig, landed in a net. You've done amazing things. Tell me a little bit about what it means being here surrounded by all this history in skydiving and what this event means to you.
I mean, it's pretty amazing. When I walked in, like, I didn't even get in the door, and Cheryl Stearns comes up. All these guys are coming up and they're congratulating me, and all talking about the jump. And I almost get goosebumps because the people that are talking to me are the legends in our sport. They're the ones you grew up looking up to. I've been in this sport since I was a little kid, right? I grew up in it my whole life. Yeah. And so you look around this room room, and every table has somebody special at it, and everybody's coming up and saying hi and congratulating me on my jump, and I just want to hear their stories, and they want to hear mine. It's really cool.
Yeah. Well, obviously there's a lot of stories to be told here over this event. What are you looking forward to most over the weekend?
Mostly hearing about some of the history that I don't know about skydiving. I mean, I grew up in it, but I know a lot about the history in the Northwest in skydiving and the big things that happened, but there's a lot of stuff happened all over the country at about the same time, and it's really cool to learn. And I think that I'm able to do the things I am today and make a living doing this, and these guys were paying money and paying broken bones to be able to get me to the stage I'm at now. So it's really cool. I'd like to pay homage to them, and it's awesome to be a part of it.
Skydiving's changed a little bit, huh? Tell me about the forum that's going to happen later in this week. What are you going to be speaking about, and what are you looking forward to in that?
So it's really cool. I was asked to be part of the forum. Linda called up and she said, I was talking to Joe Kittinger, and he said, I have to call you. You got to call Luke. You got to talk to Luke. He just did this thing. And she called me up and we started talking for a little bit. I said, sure, I'd love to come down and help support. You know, it's a really cool cause, the museum, the Skydiving Hall of Fame, and, you know, all of us aspire to be there someday. And it's really cool to look and meet all these people. And we're going to be talking on the forum. I think it's Joe, Art Thompson, Alan Eustace, and myself. And it's really cool to hear their stories. Like when we helped Felix break that record, and then to watch it open the door, and then Alan went up even higher. It's just a really cool group of people, all like-minded individuals, pushing it to the next level, but also doing it calculated. Not that crazy, you know, they don't care if we live or die, not that kind of stuff, but all these risks were calculated and tested and proven before we did them.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's a change in skydiving, and over the years we've seen it just get more and more safe through those calculated risks, right? So a man who jumped from a parachute with no rig and is here walking and talking to us is here to support all this history and these amazing stories and everything. So stay tuned with us. Larry, you are one of the inductees this year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell me what this event means to you right now.
It's a humbling experience. There's a lot of heroes in our sport, a lot of heroes, really good people, and most of them are here too. And I'm really proud to be one of them that's coming into the group. It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
How long have you been skydiving?
I made my first military jump in '63, and then I started sports skydiving in '65 up in Salt Lake City. And
okay.
So since '65.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to sit down. We're going to talk more later this week. Right now, you enjoy yourself. Have a great night here.
You guys are here too. Thanks for being here. You guys are special.
Hey, you're special as well, Larry. Thank you very much. Larry Bagley, one of the inductees. Happy to be here.
This portion of the program is brought to you by Fisher Space Pen, American dependability.
Hey Graham, my name is Bo.
Yeah,
hey, pleasure to meet you. Yes, that's me. Hi. So you are the former president of the IPC. You're here now at the Skydive Museum Hall of Fame. Tell me what this event means to you right now.
It's a very special event. A lot of old faces and old friends.
Yeah.
Great to see them again. It's been a long way from my place to come here, but I was here 4 years ago, and I introduced Claude Gillard when he was inducted.
Okay.
And he's here again now, and so that's great, yeah. But I'm having a great time meeting all my old friends over here.
Wonderful. So you were the president of the IPC, and you've been very actively involved in skydiving for a long time now. The Skydive Museum started in 2010, and how do you see it's changed skydiving, and what do you enjoy most about the Skydive Museum and having a museum for skydiving and a Hall of Fame event?
Well, anybody who's involved in anything likes to be able to remember the past and see how things developed and so on. And that's exactly the role the museum fills. And I think they're doing a great job with it too. The plans I've seen, the people working for it, I think it's going to be a great project.
Wonderful. What is your plans to continue supporting the museum in the future? Are you going to attend the events and stuff like that?
Well, I'll do as much as I can to support the people who are in the museum have asked me if I can. So, yeah, from Australia, we'll do what we can. And
Came all the way from Australia.
yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you very much for being here. Here with Graham Windsor, the former president of the International Parachuting Commission. Thank you, Graham.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm here at the Skydive Museum Hall of Fame with Laura Tyler. Laura, you're a longtime jumper. What does it mean to you being here watching all this?
It's to be with my friends from the beginning. I've been doing this for 43 years, and it gives me an opportunity to visit
Yeah.
and be with the people that taught me from the beginning how to jump.
And you've seen them all go from being students and instructors and everything.
Yeah.
How cool is it that this event glorifies all that and glorifies their accomplishments?
That's a hard one for me to answer, because these guys have done so much, and they're the unsung heroes. The older jumpers from the 60s, they raised me. I began in 73, and they taught me what I know, and I am looking at one right over. No, I don't know her, but there's a bunch of them that were with the U.S. parachute team, and I was hanging out at Rayford, and they kind of...
So you've known them for a while.
Yeah.
So you're still jumping these days. Tell me a little bit about what's going on for the elder generation in skydiving right now.
Okay, here's one for you. April next year, women over 60, skydivers over 60. We're going to do a record.
Where's that?
At Paris.
And what record?
It will be a formation dive for women skydivers over 60.
Okay.
So that's pretty exciting, and then also I'm flying all over the place, so it's a lot of fun.
Very cool. You can see skydivers still active, still jumping, still smiling. So thank you very much, Laura. We're here at the Skydive Museum Hall of Fame, just getting started here. People are showing up. Lots of people, very excited, very happy to be here.
This portion of the program is brought to you by Paragear, serving skydivers since 1960.
Here with Nick Roulette. Nick, you are a super successful, very dedicated skydiver. Tell me what being here at the Skydive Museum Hall of Fame event is like for you.
It's really cool to be around all the people that have helped shape and kind of mold the sport that I've grown up in.
Yeah.
It's cool to hear all the same stories that I've heard my old man talk about and reconfirm, I guess.
Sure.
So I know that he's not lying to me.
Sure.
But it's really cool to see everybody coming together from all the different generations, all the different ages, celebrating, the passion of the sport of skydiving.
Right on. And then moving forward, the Skydive Museum is something that's just going to grow and grow and grow. How do you want to continue being a part of it and supporting it?
I mean, coming out to these things is always an awesome thing.
Right.
Meeting new people, sharing stories, creating new friendships, things like that. I'd really like to see the actual museum get built.
Yeah.
I want to see the structure. I want to see everything inside the museum
For sure.
that we all have a part of. So yeah, hopefully I'll be able to make as many of them as I
Do you
can.
see people, our generation, the younger generation, being as like responsive and supporting that type of idea, dream?
Not as much as I would like to.
Okay.
I don't think that I think they think maybe the history is the history and that's the past.
Sure.
But they don't realize that we're creating the past for the future of the skydiving industry. So it'd be really cool for more people our age to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And I think it'll happen in time.
Yeah.
But if you come out here and you share a drink with some of these guys that have way more years in the sport than we are alive,
Yeah.
I think it's pretty easy to realize that you're still around family, you're still around skydivers. It doesn't matter how old they are.
Yeah, absolutely. It's awesome being here. I got Jason Blade over here. Hey, tell me, you're a younger generation coming to the Skydive Museum, watching all these stories, hearing these stories, watching history kind of unfold. Tell me what it means to you being here right now.
Oh, the stories are unbelievable. You can't make this stuff up, mate.
No.
People like Lou Sanborn, D1. You know, you got Curtis standing behind me. Their stories go on and on and on. They're legends. They would just go on for decades and decades. I mean, I've been to, I'm not quite sure, I think this might be the 7th inductees for the museum.
Right.
And I believe I've been to 6 out of the 7. And the one I missed was in my hometown in Rayford, North Carolina right now. And I had an accident and I happened to be in the hospital. But I've been to every single one but one. Yeah, it's really good.
And what do you like most about coming to them?
Like you said, the stories, mate, the stories are just unbelievable. From when they first did RW, when there was no wind tunnels, there was none of this stuff going on, you know, their stories are just, it's unbelievable. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it's great.
How important is it for people of our generation and younger and newer skydivers to come to an event like this?
Oh, for the younger generation, it's special for them to come and hear some of the stories because it just sounds unbelievable. It's like, no, it wasn't like that. You're jumping rounds as mains and things like that. It's unreal. People should come to these events and listen to some of the stories from some of the legends in the industry.
Absolutely,
sure.
It's craziness, right?
Yeah. Well, I know Sammy personally, and I just met you. Well, I've seen you in Chicago at the Worlds, and I know they're all in, man. They're dedicated. They're going all in. They need people to support them. You know, they need sponsorships. They travel the world. They make it happen. Skydive TV is by far the best in the industry at what they do. Yeah, by far. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
This portion of the program is brought to you by SunPat Products. Make every jump an odyssey. The SunPath student. SunPath quality. Skyhook equipped. Less than $2,400. See your SunPath dealer for more information or go to sunpath.com.
Hello, and thanks for tuning back in to Skydive TV. My name is Bo Reby, and I'm happy to be here at Skydive Arizona for the 2016 International Skydive Museum Hall of Fame event. This weekend, we have some of the pioneers from the sport of skydiving gathered here to recreate some jumps, tell some stories, and have an all-around good time. We are inducting 6 new members to the historic ranks of the Hall of Fame, so stay tuned with us as we bring you stories, interviews, action, everything going on here at Skydive Arizona for the International Skydiving Museum Hall of Fame event. 2016, the Skydiving Museum is inducting some of the most impactful and influential people within the skydiving sport from the foundation of skydiving. Let's check out who these 2016 inductees are. I am here with Pat Moorhead. Pat, tell me about the jump you're going to go on right now.
Well, 60 years ago, this last September, two French guys made a dive using a baton taken from a relay race to try to see if they could fly to each other and pass the baton. At that time, it was unheard of. It was claimed to be one of the most dangerous stunts in the world.
Alex Luke, come to manifest.
And so Bill Jones had the idea that we should recreate that thing for this Hall of Fame event. So Bill Jones, who's got many thousands of jumps and probably was jumping in 19 whatever,
can you check in?
and myself are
For 7, check in.
going up to film and recreate the baton pass that was done 60 years ago. And we have the privilege of being filmed by Tom Sanders, the gold medal winner from USPA, and Mike McGowan, who is the resident free-fall photographer here at Skydive Arizona, and who has had a lot of covers. So we're hoping maybe we'll make the cover of Parachutist.
There you go. You hear it. Lots of history jumps being done here. Thanks, Pat. Good luck on the jump.
Okay.
Here with Bill Jones, thousands and thousands of skydives you've done. What are you recreating right now? Tell me about your idea.
I decided that we ought to recreate the first baton pass, which was 60 years ago, almost to the day. And I got with Pat Moorhead, who is he's actually older than I am by 3 weeks, so he's the old guy. And I said, all right, let's pass the baton in commemorative of the first event.
And that jump, when was that jump done? The first one?
I think it was 1956.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it was 60 years ago, like I say, almost to the day, in France. And so it's been attempted to be duplicated over and over again in throughout the world. And so we decided that this would be a great event.
I'm standing next to Bill Lagarde. Bill, you are a member of the Pops 50 jump. Can you explain a little bit about the jump and what it means?
Yes, this is the 50th anniversary of the Pops event, or the Pops organization. So we're building a big 5-0 in the sky to commemorate that, and coordinating it with the timing of the Hall of Fame inductions.
What is Pops?
Pops is parachutists over 40, spelled with a PH. So it's skydivers over 40 years old.
Okay.
When I started jumping about 38 years ago, those were really old guys. Now they're not so old. Those are my compatriots.
Hey, I am here with BK. BK, you are one of the captains for this record 50 that you're creating in the air, the Pops 50. Tell me a little bit about the jump.
We're using 2 aircraft. We're using a Caravan and a Twin Otter. We're building a 5-0 up there to represent the Pops. It's a one-way formation, and then we have a grip we can drop in half, and so you can see the distinctive 5 and the 0.
Cool.
So yeah, awesome time.
How much planning goes into creating this formation?
Quite a bit. Nick Hemlin did most of the planning on the jump. Yesterday we made 5 jumps. We have some great pictures from Joe Jennings, so we have some awesome photos from yesterday. Today we're going to capitalize on what we learned and make it happen again 2 more times. So everybody that's a participant on the 5-0 has paid to be part of the event. Skydive Arizona has donated the aircraft support, so which is a way for the museum and the Hall of Fame to build revenue to build the building. So everybody here is an active donator into the museum.
What's it mean, what does the Skydive Museum and the Hall of Fame event mean to you?
Well, it's an incredible time to stand among giants. You know, the people here, we would be nowhere in our sport compared to what they have done for us. So it's awesome to stand around, listen to the stories, honor their accomplishments. You know, what an awesome time.
Yeah. Well, best of luck on the jump, for sure.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, BK.
This portion of the program is brought to you by Fisher Space Pen, American dependability.
Event of a lifetime for me.
Yeah.
It's an honor, it's a privilege. This 24 group of people is just going to be a lot of fun. Proud to make this formation the numeral 50.
Sure thing.
Yeah.
How do you go about supporting the Skydive Museum, and how does this jump support the Skydive Museum?
Well, each member of the 24-person team paid $500 to have this privilege, and we're making the jumps. It's just as soon as I heard about it, I said I got to be on it.
You got to do it.
Got to do it.
Right on.
Well, I have a personal friend by the name of Larry Bagley that I've jumped with since 1972, and he's been great for the sport. And because of my friendship with him, these things mean more to me, especially now that he's getting inducted to the Hall of Fame. And it's a pleasure for me to be in this formation jump that we're having right now. And the sport's done a lot for me. I've got to see a lot of the world. I've got to be in movies and different things because of this skydiving sport. So to me, this is one of the best things in my life that's ever happened to me, and I've been jumping since 1970.
Well, the Pops 50 jump is going up now. This is celebrating 50 years of the Parachutists Over 40 organization within skydiving. Let's watch that jump.
Times are changing everywhere. Do we dream and do we dare? It's up to you. The door is open wide. Feel the rhythm of today. Learn the part and join the play. The world is here. Let's take it for a ride. You could be larger than life, bigger than the world, living out the hopes and dreams of every boy and every girl. You could fly higher than the sky, shine brighter than the stars. You could have all you ever wanted, shoot the moon and reach for Mars. You know you're good. Larger, larger than, bigger, bigger than, living hopes and dreams. Every boy and girl, higher, higher than, brighter, brighter than, all you wanted and you know. You could be larger than life, bigger than the world, living out the hopes and dreams of every boy and every girl. You could fly higher than the sky, shine brighter than the stars. You can have all you ever wanted. Larger, larger, bigger, hopes and dreams. Every boy, you could fly higher than the sky, shine brighter than the stars. You can have all you ever wanted. You know you could.
It is only day one here at the Skydiving Museum Hall of Fame. The participants and their guests are arriving. They're getting registered, ready for the weekend, ready for all the activities going on. Today alone, there's many presentations happening. There's a presentation on Tiny Broadwick, who completed the first free fall skydive over a century ago, which, by the way, was an accident. There's also a presentation on gear throughout the years and how it's changed, and a forum from some of the skydivers that have jumped from outer space. So stay tuned with us here at Skydive TV as we bring you coverage of this amazing historic event, the International Skydiving Museum Hall of Fame 2016, right here at Skydive Arizona.
This portion of the program is brought to you by Paragear, serving skydivers since 1960.
I have the privilege of standing next to Alan Eustace. Alan has completed the highest skydive of any skydive ever, parachute jump, 139,000.
136,890 feet. I know it by heart.
There you go, amazing. So Alan, we're here at the Skydiving Museum, the Hall of Fame event. Tell me a little bit about what this event and what this International Skydiving Museum means to you.
So we've been, I was fortunate. I got a call from the Skydiving Museum that said we're going to put together a panel here. And then she told me the people that are on the panel, and it was like me, and then Joe Kittinger, and then Art Thompson, and then Luke Akins. And it's like, yeah, I'm in, baby. So, and we just did it, and it was fantastic. I mean, listening to Joe's stories and Art's stories, and you know, we all talked about, you know, spins and spin resistance, what we learned from each other, and it was just a fantastic event. It was really good, and I'm slipping in some skydives here along the way. I got. This morning I got to jump with 3 members of Arizona Airspeed.
Nice.
So it was like awesome, you know. It was like they were perfect in everything, and you know, I was like scrambling around a bit, but
They make you feel like a good skydiver, though, huh?
they made me feel like golden, and so it was fantastic. And then just now, Joe Kittinger was on the DC-3, and he was a co-pilot of the DC-3, and so I went to get on that load, and I brought my rig along just in case I might need it, and just in case they might fly over. And then it turns out there's a whole DC-3 load going out, and so I actually glommed onto a 5-way that was going out. I have no jumpsuit, anything, and it was fun. We turned 2 points, and I got to learn what it was like to fly without any suit again. But it was a blast. It was really a blast.
Your main kind of duty here is for the panel, but it's nice that you're getting to play and have some fun also.
Oh, I'm definitely having a lot of fun, and people have been super kind to me, and it's been great, and it's for a great cause. You know, the Skydiving Museum, I think, is going to be fantastic. It's going to have the history of the sport, and what's really been fun for me is the audience really represents the history of the sport. Almost everything that's been done, you know, Lou Sanborn, D1, I mean, all these people that were instrumental in making the sport what it is today, and honestly, it's just great to soak in the history. I'm getting goosebumples. I mean, it's just amazing. It was fun. And I started to jump in '75, which is a long time ago. But some of these guys date back to the very beginnings, and for me, it's been super special.
Right on. Moving forward then into the future, how important do you think it is to have a skydiving museum, something that preserves the history and the pioneers of the sport?
Well, I mean, I think it's very important. I mean, even the stories that I hear today aren't being preserved in any way. That's all word of mouth.
Yeah.
And you know, I feel like if we have a place to look at, you know, the early rigs. I mean, most of the people who skydive now have never even seen a belly wart. They have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
And if they put it on, they'd be scared to death of it, I promise. And, you know, they didn't learn like we did with a static line and giant boots and jumping into a pit of sawdust for an entire day. And, you know, and I don't know. I mean, maybe kids of today aren't that interested in it, but I think as they progress in the sport, as they see everything that's done before them, I think it'll make them better skydivers. It really will.
Yeah, and it opens your eyes more to just everything going on in skydiving, right? Where it all came from is pretty cool. It's stories that are told around the campfire, but it's more than just a campfire. You got to tell them everywhere. You got to let people see them.
It's great too, because you get people in my generation, and then you go over the tunnel, and I watched Arizona Airspeed, and they were doing you know, tunnel work, and they were doing free flying.
Yeah.
Not because their discipline required it, but because that was a next generation of moves and body position and stuff like that. So you get in a unique position here of getting the history of the sport, but also the future of the sport at the same time. It's very special.
Wonderful. Tell me then, what's next for you, for Alan Eustace? Any more records, anything like that?
I made it when I retired from Google about 16 months ago now. And everybody said, "Oh, you're going to be bored, right?" And, you know, and so I said, "No, I don't think so." But I wrote up a list of all the things I wanted to do, and how many hours it would take, and how many weeks a year, or how many hours per week, and stuff. And I totaled it up at the end, and it had 17 years worth of things I wanted to do. And then so well, actually it started at 23 years, and then I increased my work week from 40 to 45, and I got it down to 17 years.
Amazing.
But then people keep, you know, like throwing interesting things at me. Like a few weeks ago, somebody asked, "Hey, do you want to go in a deep sea submersible?" And I said, "Oh yeah, count me in." And so I went down to 1,325 meters underneath the sea, which was super cool. So
wow.
Anyway, I'm kind of living the dream, I must say. But
you do it all, man.
I also have a family behind, so I have to carve out enough family time to keep my wife from divorcing me.
Shout out to the kids or anything. There you go.
Hi kids. Hi Kathy. Hi Emily. Hi Caitlin.
Well, thank you very much, Alan. Pleasure talking to you.
This portion of the program is sponsored by Cypress, the #1 in AAD technology.
Pretty cool event going on here. We have an art gallery stroll. There is everything you can imagine, from paintings to glasswork to little nut and bolt configurations made into skydivers, all a part of the International Skydiving Museum and this Hall of Fame event. Behind me you can see the Wall of Fame for the Hall of Fame for the inductees, listing the inductees all the way from when the International Skydiving Museum started in 2010 up until this year, 2016. Let me take you around, show you a little bit about what we have here.
It's a great chance to really talk with sort of the backbone of our sport, the people who developed it, who made it what it is today, and it's really a neat opportunity for you to get out there and ask some questions yourself, like what was it like to jump the gutter gear, you know, the stuff that nowadays we wouldn't even think of touching, and they all made the sport what it is, so it's really neat just to see that.
Well, the sun is setting here on day one of the 2016 International Skydiving Museum Hall of Fame event here at Skydive Arizona. It was a fantastic day, beautiful weather, lots of activities here. There's an art gallery, there's a forum panel, which will bring you more tomorrow, information and speaking from some of the most historic and pioneers of the sport that have accomplished amazing things. We're also going to have interviews with the 2016 Hall of Fame inductees, so look forward to that. Right now we're off to a barbecue, so you have a good night and we'll see you later. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Bo Reeby.
Congratulations to 2016 inductee in the Hall of Fame.
Thank you, I'm proud of it.
And tell us, how did you get here?
It started one day in the hallways of Granite High School in 1963 when a friend of mine came walking past me and said, "Hey, we're going to go join the Utah National Guard." And I said, "Well, who's going?" And he named off 7 or 8 of my friends. I said, "Well, I want to go." So we went down, got in the Utah National Guard, and 2 months later, one of the drills, one of the sergeants said, "Hey, you need the new helmet with the chin strap so your helmet won't fall off." And I said, "Oh, I'll be really careful. My helmet will never fall off." And he said, "Well, if you don't have the right chin strap, it could fall off when you're jumping." And I said, "Jumping from what?" And that's what I found out 2 months after I'd signed the papers. I was going to jump school at Fort Benning, Georgia. The rest is history.
There we go. And then that led you to becoming an Army jumper?
I immediately went through jump school and came back to Utah to continue jumping with the 19th Special Forces, and 6 months later the 1964 U.S. National Championships were held up at the Alda Airport in Salt Lake City. I went up to see what was going on. Once again, had to get involved in that stuff. Made my first sport jump in April of '65, and 5,200 jumps later, they're going to induct me in the Hall of Fame.
You stopped jumping in 2001.
2001 was the last jump of the world meet, Paraski in Austria.
That's right. And from 1965 to today, you were an executive director of USPA. You were involved with our sport on many levels. Tell us a little bit about your involvement in all that, and what led you to go into that direction?
Well, a good friend is here at this induction. 74, Bill Dawes was the conference director in Utah, and he said, we don't like the decisions Bill Dawes are making, and I'm not popular enough, and you are, so we're going to run you against Bill Dawes. And I then became the Mountain Conference Director in 75. Went on the board for 20 years, including 8 years as the president of USPA, 2 years as the chairman of the board. And I was an air traffic controller at the time. Wow. And Chris Needles, as the executive director, came to the board, brand new hiree, and he said, the single biggest issue I have is air traffic and airspace use issues, and I don't understand it. And I said, well, I've been on the board for 20 years, and I really enjoyed working with Chris Needles when he was on the board. So I went to Chris and I said, I run a drop zone in Utah, and I'm ready to sell it and move to Virginia, so I'm your man. So I got to work for Chris Needles for about 10 years, and one of the best executive directors USPA ever had, but I then became his director of government relations, and then later the deputy executive director, and then I created the title of director of competition and served in that position for the 16 total years that I worked at USPA.
Wow. Well,
so
it's incredible to see you being inducted this year. Congratulations.
Well, I'm with a bunch of good friends. I know every one of these, jumped with every one of these guys over the years, and I'm really proud to be a part of the class of 2016 and join the rest of these pillars of our community. We got a great bunch in the Hall of Fame now, and more to come.
What is your personal feeling?
It's a sense of gratitude for those that I was able to work with and be around. In my speech tonight, it's going to be hard to really quantify the difference in my life because of the people in the sport. This is more than just a sport, an activity. It is literally a way of life. It's absolutely turned out to be the most important decision that happened, and ironically, it was just fate. It was meant to be, and I'm so happy, so proud to be a part of this community.
So from the moment that you didn't know what you were getting yourself into, to the induction in the Hall of Fame, what a life.
What a life. I mean, and it's the people. It really is a brotherhood that is almost beyond description. It's a lifestyle, it's a feeling, I'm really proud of it, and I'm the third generation in the Bagley family. All of my 4 kids have made a skydive, and this morning 4 of the grandkids made a skydive, and those that are not old enough to skydive were on our way over to the tunnel, so the rest of the 12 grandkids get to go in the wind tunnel before the day's over.
Now, you're also trustee of the museum. What is your personal feeling about the museum, and what do we need to do collectively to take it to the next level?
Well, when I think back, my first skydive, like I said, sport jump was in 65, and we felt like at the time we were kind of just having a good time. But you look back on it and you see the history that we made. Nobody ever dreamed. Nobody had even an inkling of where we were going. And so in that sense, history's being made right today with the way these guys are skydiving, the technology and the equipment, and it's crazy. And so somebody that has this kind of a brotherhood has got to have somewhere where you can display that, where you can show that and share that. Because skydivers, as you know, it's a gregarious group. We got to do it, and then we got to tell somebody. We got to video, still pictures. We got to show them. And the museum is going to be that ideal place. We've got some really great people behind the museum that know about design, about exhibits and that stuff, and it's going to be changing all the time. You'll be able to go every year and see something different, something that really sticks. And we're really looking forward to showing everybody our history and being a part of it, continuing to be a part of it.
What does it personally mean to you?
Well, you know, it's I said when I was given the USPA Lifetime Achievement Award that as a kid I always wanted to grow up to be somebody, but I realized later that I should have been more specific. And that's kind of what this means to me, is that it feels like, whether I'm by design or by pure fate, that I get to be a part of all of this. I feel like, being on the board for 20 years, I'm the president of USPA, 70-year history of the sport, I was I'm president of USPA longer than anybody in its history, so I hold that little bit. But just like that little bit, there are so many people walking around us that have that kind of niche in history that you feel it's that kind of a warm, fuzzy feeling that I got to be a part of a great brotherhood, a great environment.
your generation is the first generation, the pioneers of our sport. This is it. You guys put the foundation of what's happening today. What would you like to tell the youngsters in our sport today that a lot of them don't really understand some of the history behind and what took place so they can have what they have today?
Well, I think what's proven, and I think these guys must have a feeling about this somewhere, even if it's subconsciously, is that there is no limit. What we're seeing these guys do was beyond our wildest dream. If we made 3 skydives in a weekend, in a Saturday and a Sunday, and we didn't jump during the week, we just jumped on, and everybody packed their own rig. These guys are, there is no limit. You are limited only by your imagination. And these guys, to me, as we're sitting here watching this stuff, it's just amazing what they're doing, especially as compared to what we're doing. And I bet you $10 right now that in 15 or 20 years they're going to say exactly the same thing, as I had no idea where we were going, because it is so unique.
Well, hello, Mr. DeWolf.
Hi.
Welcome to our mobile Skydive TV studio right here in the middle of Skydive Arizona.
Right.
And congratulations to your inauguration.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Hall of Fame Museum.
Yep, thank you.
So, how did you get here?
What happened was a friend of mine. The reason I'm getting this honor is from training so many parachute riggers, and I've been doing it since 1972, and I've run it every year since that year. And it started in '71 when a friend of mine, Joe Smith, came up from Florida. He needed $400 to get a van. So I said, "Why? We got these people around here that want to become riggers." In those days, it was all they cared about was chest, and we had the club stops jumping in January because of the weather and to get the plane annual. So why don't you do it then? He says, okay. So I get the 8 people. They all pay $50. He gets his $400, and I didn't even help him. He trained them. And then he gets done and said, I'll never do that again. Then next year other people wanted to do it, and I said, okay, I'll do it once. And that's how it started.
But, so let me back up a little bit. So you're first a rigger and a parachute jumper, or first?
I was a parachute jumper first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you made your first.
I started jumping in '62.
Yes. In the
and this was '71 that this happened.
That's right.
So yeah.
So in '62 you made your skydive. Then you become a
rigger in '65. Yeah. And a master rigger in '70.
There we go. And since 1970 till today, you're a rigger and an active skydiver.
Yeah.
And how many jumps do you have today?
I have 13,200 and something.
13,000, and you're still active, correct?
Yeah. I don't jump as much as I used to, but if I make 3 jumps a day, I'm happy.
Well, tell me, being here at this event, what does it mean to you personally to be inducted in the Hall of Fame?
Well, it's kind of great because it's, first of all, a lot of my friends, are here, and I'm being inducted with a lot of great people that I've known all my life. That's the coolest thing is the people I'm inducted with. To me, that's an honor to be with them. It's really great.
So you received the gold medal from USPA in 2001.
Yeah.
You also did the Joe's skydives.
Right.
Tell me about those.
The Joe's skydive was kind of strange because they decided we finally had 6 people who were over 80, and what happened was I didn't realize it, but I had a cornea tear, and I had trouble looking out of my right eye. I didn't know what I had, and so they wanted to do this, and I said, well, okay, but you better give me a left-hand grip because I can't see on the right side. So the 6 of us went up, and we got the formation. I got my left-hand grip, you might say, on this leg, and we got the record. And I got down, it really hurt, until I got back home, and they said, oh my gosh, you weren't jumping with it, were you? Anyway, but we got it, and it was great.
So tell me about the museum. You know, what is how do you personally feel about the Skydiving Museum, and what else do you think that needs to be done, needs to be improved for the youngsters to get involved in it, and how do we support it?
Well, of course, supporting it is money. You know, the museum needs money to get built and to take care of and all that kind of stuff. No question about that. But in my career, I started in '62. There's been so many changes, and that's what's cool about the museum. It can show how things evolved, the changes that people don't realize what happened way back when all we had was military surplus to jump. Okay. Anyway, and who knows what changes there will be in the future. Like, there's so many different ways of jumping now, and everybody that wants to jump has their own thing or what they like, and it's what's great about it. Everybody seems to get along, like the freestyle, the free flying, the wingsuits, all this other stuff, you know, and then flat flying. That's always been there, but who knows what's going to happen in the future? It's almost mind-boggling to think of it, you know.
It is. Well, I would like to say congratulations one more time. Thank you for your dedication to the sport, and enjoy your moment as a Hall of Famer.
Oh, I sure will. I have a lot of friends here to cheer me on. I have no fear.
How did you get here?
Well, as a kid, about 16 years old, in Banning, California, where I was raised, I was watching, they used to have those movie-tone newsreels, and I was watching this newsreel of these guys in Little France jumping out of an airplane and falling in free fall almost out of sight before they opened their parachutes. And I thought right then, I don't know how or when, but I got to do that. So when I got the opportunity, when I left home at 18, I just wrote a book, published a book called No ETA, No Estimated Time of Arrival. Right. And I named it that because when I left home at 18 years old, I had no idea where I was going or what time I was going to get there. Yeah. So I joined the Army and went into Special Forces. I was with the 77th Special Forces when there was only 400 of us. Half of them couldn't speak English. They had escaped and evaded out of Poland and Czechoslovakia, but really some good fighters. And went through jump school with the Special Forces, Fort Bragg, and then we started trying to get sport parachuting approved in the Army. They were doing it as civilians, but the Army wouldn't let us do it. So finally the Army agreed with AR 95-14, I think it was, for us to do free fall parachuting in the Army. So they brought Jacques Castell and Lou Sanborn down to Fort Bragg to train everybody, the original cadre. Yes. And I was a parachute rigger, so we packed for them for the original cadre. Yes. And then when they got finished with them, they all went out, spread out to their different organizations and started military parachute clubs. And I was on the original board of directors of the Special Warfare Center Sport Parachute Club. So from there, I just got pretty heavy into skydiving, and they told me that Colonel Greaves, who started the Golden Knights, told me, said, we're going to start a strike parachute team, special duty, nothing but skydiving. You want to be on it? And I said, yes, sir. He said, well, it comes to our attention that you've only got 3 months to go in the Army, so you're going to have to re-enlist or do something. I said, how long do I have to make up my mind? He said, about 30 seconds. So I re-enlisted in the Army and became a member of the original Golden Knights. And
it was called the U.S. Parachute Team.
No, it was called the Strike Parachute Team, Strategic Army Corps Parachute Team. And there was that until 1960 when we got our own TONE, our Table of Organization and Distribution, and became the U.S. Army Parachute Team. And at that time, I kind of started excelling in competition. The team had demonstration teams, it had competition teams, and research and development teams. And I kind of excelled in the competition portion. So I ended up winning the national championships 3 years in a row. The first person to do that.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah, I was the first person to do that in 1961, 62, and 63, and that retired the national trophy. It was whoever won it the most times in a 10-year period, or whoever won it 3 times in a row, got to retire it. So I've got that at home.
There we go.
And Then during that period of time, I was U.S. team captain for 4 years on 4 U.S. teams. And in 1960 in Sofia, Bulgaria, competing there, I scored the first dead center landing ever made in competition. And that's a record that'll never be broken.
And that was in Bulgaria?
That was in Sofia, Bulgaria.
I was born and raised in that town.
Oh, were you?
Yes.
Oh, great place, yeah.
Yes, actually you were competing at that time with my mother's coach. And you know, and her and his wife.
Well, that's
Angel
fantastic.
Golubov.
What was her name?
Angel Golubov.
I don't recall it, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And, I wasn't born at the time, but I've heard a lot about that particular competition and about that first dead center as well. So.
Yeah, well, that's great.
Yeah.
I also dislocated my elbow in that competition on my second to last jump. But anyway, that was a good competition. I didn't place well overall, but then in 1962 I was U.S. team captain, and in Orange, Massachusetts, and I ended up third place for the. Well, I'm sorry, in Sofia, Bulgaria, I ended up second overall. I should have been first overall, but. I dislocated my elbow and I couldn't make my last jump. Well, after everybody finished, I was in first place. Then all of a sudden we saw the airplane going up, and Klima from Czechoslovakia was going up for a re-jump. Protested that smoke drifted over the target, which was a lie. And so we told them to bring the airplane down. They said they didn't have communications with it, which was another lie. So we knew that if he beat me, it was going to hold. So he beat me on his re-jump, and we protested to the FAI jury. There was 4 Western countries and 7 Eastern countries on the jury. Guess what the vote was? So I ended up with a silver overall that year. Then in Orange, Massachusetts, I ended up with a bronze overall. The competition was cut short because of weather. But the team that I trained the first women's U.S. team.
Yes, you did.
And they ended up winning world champion overall. And
that was in 62.
62.
Yes.
And Muriel Sembro won the gold medal overall for women. And then we went on to the last world competition in 1964 in Leukirch, Germany, 1964. And I finally, I wasn't going to go to that competition because I figured I had had my chances, you know, and 2 of them, and the kids were coming up. They were really good, that were much better than I was, I figured. So I gave up my slot on the U.S. team. Well, I got a directive from the Department of the Army, said you will represent the United States in the next World Championship. So that kind of took all the pressure off of me, and I went over there and I ended up winning it.
Yeah.
And but it was on the last jump. They told Deke Sonicson, who was our team leader, he told me, he said, all you need is 1.32 meters and you'll be the world champion. And I said, Deke, I didn't need to know that. I said, I don't compete against the other guys. I compete against what I can do. Now you've given me something to think about, and I didn't want that. So anyway, I went up and made the jump, and I hit 1.42 meters.
Damn.
And I thought, here I am, a bridesmaid again, you know. So I walked off the target, and they said my face was just white, you know. And Deke Sonicson said, what'd you get? And I said, 1.42 meters. And one of the girls said, somebody tell him, for crying out loud. Deke said, you're the new world champion. I said, what? He said, no, if you'd have hit 1.32 meters, you'd have had a gold medal in that event. That's where I won the world championship.
That's interesting. Well, you know, you have many firsts, obviously, that you've created in your career, but you also have one more first, and that's the Sports Illustrated cover that you made. Tell me about that.
Well, we were training in Orange, Massachusetts, and the host team always takes them sometime, all the other teams, and goes to show them something interesting about their country. Well, we were going to take them down to New York City and show them New York. Well, before that, they had taken a lot of pictures. You know, we're always taking photo ops, you know, and I'm sure I signed something. I didn't know what it was for or anything, but I was getting ready to make a jump, and they said, Dick, photo ops. So I went over, they inflated a parachute behind me, took a picture, you know, and I went on for a practice jump. I had no idea what it was for. So we was taking all the teams down to New York, and we stopped in a plaza to get some refreshments, and I walked in. There was a whole rack of Sports Illustrated with my picture on the cover of it. I was so embarrassed, I went back and sat down on the bus the rest of the trip.
Yeah, it's, I'm looking at the date on this. It's August 13th, 62.
1962.
Correct.
And I was the first named skydiver. There was a skydiver was on the cover before that, but there was no name. He was just in free fall. You couldn't see his face or anything. But I was the first name skydiver. Had my portrait and had America's Dick Fortenberry on there.
Wow. Well, incredible career. You are a fierce competitor. We are sitting here at an International Skydive Museum Hall of Fame event. What does your induction into the Hall of Fame mean to you personally?
I like it because it's a recognition that people gave me. It's I don't feel like it's something that I've done. It's something that people have done for me. You know, they looked at my accomplishments and they say that he should be in there, and that really pleases me. It's just like when I got the Leonardo da Vinci diploma. That's something you don't compete for. The FAI gets together annually and votes on who should receive the highest international parachuting award there is, and they get together and vote on it. But this is the end of a long career, you know, for me, and I really appreciate being voted into it.
What do you think about the museum as a whole and the skydiving? Tell me your personal thoughts about the idea of the Skydiving Museum, how it should be promoted, and how much the younger population and skydivers would need to be involved in it.
Well, everybody needs to be involved with it as much as they can. And the one thing that I like is that parachuting has come such a distance from the days that I was doing it. These young jumpers nowadays have taken it to a whole new art form. And all of that should be in the museum. The accomplishments of some of the old timers like myself should be in there, you know, for the younger people to see. I think when they first started, I had my doubts about whether they'd ever get it going or not, you know. But now that it's coming to fruition, I think it's a very, very good thing, and it will promote the sport to the public, and I think that's a good thing.
Well, congratulations once again on your induction tonight. We look forward to capture it on video. And what's next for Dick?
Well, I don't know. I've got twin daughters now. They've both flew Black Hawk helicopters in combat. And when they were 16, they had to do an accelerated free fall on their birthday. So I guess I'll just kind of sit back and see what their career is going to do, you know.
Give them a little bit of nudge here and there?
Here and there, yeah. When they made their AFF, my wife spent that time in the bar.
Well, congratulations.
So thank you, appreciate it.
Pleasure. Hi, Pat.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to our studio, and congratulations on the 2016 Hall of Fame inductee. How did you get here?
I came down I-10 and through Phoenix. Oh.
You know that route.
Okay, let me tell you how I got here, and I'm very sincere about this. My belief is nobody gets to be a notable person in skydiving all by themselves. It's teamwork, it's friends, it's associates, it's family, and it's a lot of support from the skydiving community, and that's why I'm so proud to have been chosen for this honor.
You had a very interesting career. You're 84 years old today.
I'll be 85 in a month.
85 in a month. You're still jumping. You did 81 jumps for your 80th birthday, and I remember that.
Yes.
That's quite an accomplishment. But you've also taken part in a lot of movies, TV commercials. You've been part in the film industry. Tell us about your career. Tell us, you know, some of the stories that you went through and what inspired you to become a skydiver.
Well, actually, living in Southern California near Hollywood, I've always had the opportunity to be on different television and stuff. I started with game shows. Then I became a member of Screen Actors Guild, then a member of AFTRA, and the different unions that get you to work. But I have to tell you that in the business, you have to usually know somebody to get to work.
Yes.
But I've been in movies and television and game shows and been the principal actor a few times. Generally, I was either a stunt actor or a atmosphere person, they call it, which is just a part-time person. But beyond that, as I was going to tell you, I was a fireman. My real career was being a fireman. And I became a fireman in 1954.
I retired as a battalion chief in 1982 with the city of Vernon near Los Angeles. But before that, back in 1969, a group of us was looking at a little black and white television, and we saw a program on Lake Elsinore Skydiving Center in Southern California. So being firemen, we were a little, you know, macho, I suppose, and we decided this is something we ought to do. So 5 of us went out and we made a first jump course at Elsinore. And in those days it was static line out of a single engine aircraft from 2,800 feet. And I actually made 2 jumps the first day. I was really curious about this sport. Then as time went by, I wanted to know what's it like to pull my own ripcord. And so a few more jumps, I did that. And then I said, well, what's it like to do some free fall? Well, the short part of the story is after 7 jumps, I was cleared off of student status and I was on my own.
Wow.
And then I wanted to go higher. I wanted to see what it was like to take a really long free fall. And it just went from there. I would have never believed I'd still be in this sport that many 47, 48 years later, doing the same stuff, packing different parachutes.
Yes, a little different.
Different. It's thank goodness it's a little different. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
A lot different.
Well, you also started the very first demo team, so to speak. That was non-skydiving. It was a civilian team. And,
yes.
If I remember correctly, that was in '72.
In '72, it was the California Aerial Circus Parachute Team. It wasn't necessarily the very first demo team. It was what I call the very first show team.
The show team, yeah.
Everything we did, we didn't use demo. We thought demo was something you do with Tupperware, you know, or a new car to see how it works. Everything was planned and based on what they do in Hollywood to make a show for the audience.
Yes.
We never just jumped in t-shirts and blue jeans, excuse me. We jumped in colorful costumes.
Right.
And they evolved over the years, sometimes sequins, sometimes tuxedos. We've jumped into downtown Tokyo, we've jumped into Mexico City, we've jumped all over the world, Oshkosh at the air shows. And we developed a very, very exciting and professional show team.
Yes, you did.
Yep.
Is the team still active?
It's active, except that I don't chase jobs anymore. I wait for them to come to me, and I do commercials. You know, as you know, I've done commercials for Campbell Soup and banking and insurance companies, and that's a lot of fun and lucrative too, of course.
Yes, of course. Yeah, and you also created POPs, the parachutists over 40.
Well, a lot of people have that conception because I'm so much over 40, but the reality is POPs was formed 3 years before I started skydiving.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, I did not form it. A lot of people thought I was the top POP at one time. I've never been the top POP.
I was under the impression that was the
Most people are, because I've been so visible because I support POPs to the max. I think POPs is one of the best things that ever happened to our sport. What I can take credit for is founding Skydivers Over 60.
I see.
And when I turned 60 in 1991, a few months later, I gathered a bunch of my friends together, and 10 of us, and we went up and made a 10-way round or 10-way star. And that was the beginning of Skydivers Over 60. Now, Skydivers Over 60 now has 2,100 members.
21. Well, it's easy. It's a SOS.
SOS, yeah. Some people call it sauce.
Sauce.
And I don't call it sauce. I like sauce. No, it's Skydivers Over 60.
Yes, well, I had the opportunity, actually, Alicia gave me an application to join the POPs, because I'm about there, so.
Good, welcome. You'll enjoy it. By the way, POPs just, in the last few weeks, enlisted member number 12,000.
12,000.
And there are 22 chapters of POPs throughout the world.
Is there one in Vegas?
That's the United States chapter.
Oh, the United States chapter.
But I mean, there's others like in Britain and in France and so on.
Well, Pat, what does this event mean to you?
This event that happens annually around the country at different drop zones is important for the sport because it introduces the pioneers, if you will, of the sport to the younger people. And some of the people have no clue about the history of some of the older jumpers in the sport. And by the way, I'm being honored tonight with 5 other people, and every one of those started skydiving way before I did. So there's some real pioneers here that have an opportunity now to meet the younger people, to sign some logbooks, and to encourage them. Actually, I like to say to them, one day, long ago, I was you, and someday,
you'll be me.
That's right.
If they stick with the sport.
That's right. And what do you think of the museum as an entity to bring information and showcase our sport, not just to the skydivers, but to the world? What does the museum mean to you?
The museum, to me, is an important part of exposing the general population to the sport in a positive way. Unfortunately, sometimes we make the headlines because things don't always go right. But the reality is, more often than not, things go very right and very good. People have the general population, I think, has a preconceived notion of skydiving as a daredevil sport. And as you know, and as most of us know, it's not.
That's correct.
Once you're trained, once you pay attention to the rules, it's a very, very safe sport. I actually tell people that I think the most dangerous part of my weekend skydiving is the drive home on the freeway.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this to me is just a way to have fun. I could be golfing. You know, it's a nice sport.
How do you think that the younger generation, or what do you think that the younger generation could do to help support the museum and to get it out to the world?
Well, skydivers are, as you know, a very fun-loving, progressive group of people, and they're busy doing skydives and inventing new ways to experience the sport. And it's difficult to get them diverted from that particular aspect of their involvement. Their involvement has to go beyond their particular little circle of friends or their own circle of ego. They have to understand that the museum is important to all of us in all ways. So my recommendation to be for the young people to stop and take a breath and realize that they're part of the museum. The younger people have to understand that what they're doing nowadays, the progression of the sport has brought the head down, head up, and all the different sports is absolutely amazing, and they have to understand that that's part of the museum's focus too, is to show what has come from way back then. People think of museums as a dusty old building full of artifacts. That's not what this museum is going to be all about. It's going to be about the progression of the sport that affects all of us, young and old. So the young people have to get into that mindset and understand that.
Well, congratulations. Enjoy your moment, and we look forward to see you on the podium tonight.
Thanks, and thanks for having me on.
How did Bill Morrissey get to be here?
Well, you know, of course, I owe everything to my association with Ted Strong. Okay, and I went to Ted in 1982 and told him about you know, some people that I knew that had jumped in one harness together back in 1975, and I employed him to build bigger gear, which he did. And he took the concept as a method of putting a student in a harness with an instructor, and that was his focus. He looked at me and he said, quote, "We'll never lose another student," end quote. And that's Ted Strong. That's what he was all about. A lovely man, had no idea of this type of jumping as income producing. All he was interested in was student safety. So that's my association with him. And then after he went ahead and built the gear and then jumped it in January '83, he called me up and asked me to come to Florida, and he hired me to get his little program up and running, and took me on 2 little tandem jumps out of a Cessna 182 up there in DeLand. And in about 10 minutes more, he told me everything he knew, and so there I was. I was an instructor examiner, and a tandem program director with absolutely no experience whatsoever. And
in 10 minutes.
So from there on out, it was you know, learn as you go. We didn't know what we didn't know, and my very next jump was with my very first student, and we had some major problems. Parachute blew up, and the large ring elongated, and I couldn't cut away the blown parachute, so I knew I was going to have to fire a reserve into it. And so I'm very fond of admitting that I got religion in a hurry. Having opened at 6,500 feet, I had plenty of time, and so I looked up and I saw the blown parachute, and I saw Norman Kent going by taking pictures, and then I realized, I'm in deep trouble here, and I looked up and I said, if you get me out of this one, I'm definitely going to be a good boy, and so I fired reserve, presto, off I went, and from there it was one step after the other, developing training programs for tandem instructors, if you will, and students, and various other programs that we might need over the years. So that's how I got started, and that's what I spent 18 years in the front lines, if you might say, of being a tandem examiner. So I had a fairly long career, and after tandem, the FAA put tandem off an exemption to the FARs and put it into the public domain. I didn't really see any need for me. There was plenty to do. There's still plenty to do now. Okay, like in 1993, we had this event with we had a tandem side spin. Young couple went in Finland, and so then we had to take a look at that and try to figure out what made it happen and how to extricate yourself from one of those things. And so luckily for me, I put it all on film, all my test jumps and my a predetermined, or premeditated, I guess the better word, tandem jump with a guy named Chuck Karcher. And we went up and we proved the theory that if you remove the speed, the items that are increasing your speed, which would be your arms and a student's legs, that you could recover from this kind of stuff. So over the last 21 years, that particular disc has been the guide for all tandem examiners worldwide to when they're training tandem instructors, to show them how to save themselves. And to this day, we still get thank you notes. I had a lovely thank you one time while I was out in Paris Valley from a 12-year-old boy. It was a beautiful moment and brought tears to my eyes. The kid was wonderful. His mother was a tandem instructor. And so, I've gotten lots of credit that way. And so I think that's why you find me here. I've never really won anything. I didn't build anything. I didn't create anything.
You didn't build anything?
No.
You didn't do anything?
Well, I'm talking about something.
The father of tandem skydiving, and the reason why 95% of the people around here are here is you, and you say you didn't do anything.
Well, it's not that I'm trying to be overly modest. It's just that I did what I did as what I considered to be a normal work day.
Yes.
A lot of times it was frightening. I had some, really close kills.
What was it, 9 times?
when I think it was only 8. I don't want to be unfair. When I finally left Strong Enterprises, I did look at Ted and I'd say, I have to go. No, it was 9.
It was 9.
Yeah, because I said to Ted, I said, I've been here 18 years, as a tandem examiner. Your chief been out of here, and I said, you've tried to kill me 9 times, and I can sense number 10 is coming, and I'm out of here before that happens, because I'm sort of I guess you might say spiritual. If something's gnawing at me, I listen.
Mm-hmm.
I listen to the voice. I even talk to Ted nowadays.
Yeah.
So,
before I continue, you mentioned something earlier when you had that busted main canopy, that if the Almighty gets you out of this one, you're going to be a good boy. Were you?
Oh, well, let's just say I was better than I could have been. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe I was, naturally a naughty kid, and I've grown up to appreciate my good fortune.
Yes.
And I've been blessed. I really have been.
What is your personal feeling, and how do you personally feel about being the Hall of Fame inductee in 2016?
Well, I'm sort of like, I wish it would go away in a way, because you get all this notoriety, and I think it comes with an obligation, to be responsible, to be a decent person, and basically I am. I don't do any drugs. I hardly drink anything with alcohol in it, and I'm fairly well behaved. But it has something to do with the fact that I just turned 78 years old. But I'm still skydiving. I made three jumps last Saturday, and as soon as I get back to Zephyr Hills where I live, I'm going to be hopping at an airplane again. I don't see me ever walking away from skydiving. I thrill when I look up and I see the little critters jumping out of an airplane. I love being up there. I love being in the door, looking out, spotting, watching what's going on, and being part of formations. And so the thrill has never left me, and I don't expect it ever will. If my body fails me and I can't do it on my own, I have no qualms at all about going up to some tandem guy and saying, okay, now it's your turn to look after me.
Yeah, you trained enough.
Get me up there, I think, I forget how many tandem instructors, there's quite a few that I had trained,
A few thousand, 3,300 I believe.
No, those were tandem jumps that I made, 3,300, and 1,800 of those were as passengers for guys going through the course. And I think, I don't know, maybe 170, students, or maybe it was 270. I don't know, could have been 370. I kind of forgotten all that stuff.
Well, what are your thoughts of the museum?
I think that it's something that it's time. We've been, messing with this thing for years, and it's going to be a lot of opportunity for those who come along behind us, and I fully expect that these interviews here, after I'm gone, that skydivers can go into a museum, or our museum, and push a button and say, let me hear about this guy, Bill Morrissey, and my image would appear, and perhaps this dialogue will be played, and they get some sense of, who went before them and what they did. And for me, coming to these award ceremonies, the Hall of Fame inductee ceremonies, I'm genuinely interested in who the people are and what they have contributed. And so I hope to, be able to, talk in my induction ceremony tonight, and not so much about me. I don't want it to be about me, because it's just going to embarrass myself, and I don't want to do that. I want to talk about Ted Strong, and I want to talk about the development of the instructional program. And I think that's one of the reasons that I got picked to become a member of or inductee at the Hall of Fame, because of our program with training the examiners, and then having the examiners jump as passengers. I truly believe that, back in when I first started this stuff, training instructors in '84, I found that it was the best way for me to monitor what they're doing in the airplane, preparatory stuff, dirt dives, and then in free fall. I've had to throw drogues for people, and I've had to pull ripcords for people, and I had to reach over my shoulder and tell the guy, just move your hand down a little bit more, and the reserve handle's right there, and he pulled that handle at 1,000 feet above the ground. Yeah. And so, I lost more than a few red hairs over that one. And so we had these things, and we had this program, and I really have people that believe in this program, where the examiners should be up there doing this thing. Okay, you're not going to help anybody that's in the aircraft making a mistake before he even gets out of the aircraft, unless you're there, either with one student or you're watching the other guys. And I was always over there to make sure that, okay, move that ripcord up there so that the passengers can have that ripcord, and making sure that the three rings were proper. And there's a lot of stuff you can do in the airplane. And I listen to their dirt dives. I make them all dirt dive in the airplane, and then when I'm in free fall, that's just a number of things. And the thing is about the program is I know exactly what is supposed to be happening. He knows exactly what he's supposed to be doing. So even though when we were in China, we couldn't talk to them, and they couldn't talk to us, we couldn't read their logbooks, and we had no idea what the interpreters told them, and yet we were secure enough and safe enough to go ahead and jump with them.
Wow. Well, I would like to say congratulations to you, be a Hall of Famer. It's always a pleasure to sit right in front of you and listen to these stories, because I think we can do this for a very long time. But I have one final question. What do you think that the youngsters should do to get involved into the museum?
The who?
The young generation.
Oh, the young generation. Well, I think that one of the things, like tonight, I understand there's going to be over 700 people here, and a lot of them are youngsters, and they're going to hear, guys like me talking about our experiences, and when they get an opportunity to listen to your videos. But I think they should get more serious about, particularly the tandem guys. They really have to get a little bit more, I think, a little bit more professional, and a little bit less, devil may care, hurl yourself out of the airplane and figure it out later. Like an airline captain, he's not getting paid to roll the airplane or scare anybody. It's a professional job, and they get paid for it. Tandem instructors, they get paid to do the job. And they're actually doing the job of introducing that student to his very first parachute jump, and in a safe manner. And anything less than that, is missing the boat. We're trying to recruit more people into our sport. We need more people into our sport. The bigger it is, the stronger it is, the better it is. And I think that the young people are, they're extremely talented, and I think they're going to be there to make the sport grow. I don't think they're going to detract from it. I think they're going to be adding to it. And, I've always loved the young ones. So people ask me, well, do you think that we should up the requirements to become a tandem instructor? And the requirements are basically you have to have 500 jumps. I said, well, back in 1984, when Bill Booth and Ted Strong, myself, sat around making up rules, I looked at Bill Booth and I said, I thought I was pretty hot, 500 jumps, and he said, yeah, me too. And so, right there we decided, okay, the basic minimum is 500 jumps. And we made a bunch of rules in a similar fashion. But when you look at, should they have more than 500 jumps? My answer to that down the road was, I got, maybe at the time I had 1,500 jumps on the front of these kids, and I said, the kids that today have 500 jumps are so much more experienced there. And these kids today, they have AFF grads, and then they have coaching, and then they just have more talented people to jump alongside of. So these kids with 505 jumps, I just gravitated to them. I said, come here, son. You're gonna take me on a skydive. And they're looking at you like, oh my God. And but they have so much talent, and they just absorb everything that you tell them. And so I don't think that we have to change the basic minimum. Maybe something has to happen, but I cannot put my finger on it. I don't know what it is, but I'm happy with them.
Well, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. Congratulations on your induction tonight.
This portion of the program is brought to you by Paragear, serving skydivers since 1960.
Welcome back to Skydive TV. It is Saturday here at the Skydiving Museum Hall of Fame event. We're starting today with a Pro-Am Scramble. So they're taking 3 Skydive Museum participants, pairing them up with a pro 4-way competitor, putting them together for 4-way scrambles. They'll be jumping all day. It's a little bit of competition for pride. There might be a trophy or something involved at the end as well. Either way, then later throughout the day we still have another forum with some very, very distinguished skydivers throughout the years. And this evening, the banquet for the 2016 Hall of Fame inductees. Stay tuned with us here at Skydive TV. Hey, here we are. Check us out. You're harnessing up, you're getting ready to go.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit quickly what your thoughts before going into the jump.
For going into this jump, I'm so excited because I'm jumping with my daughter and my grandson. My daughter and I have jumped before together, but not with my grandson. This is in 3 generations.
Yeah.
And it's really exciting for me.
And when was your last jump?
In 2012.
So it's been a couple of years.
4 years.
4 years. Tell me, there's some other significance on this jump as well. The first time that you'll be on the plane with your old teammate?
Yes. The first time Muriel Sembro was on my team in 1962.
Yeah.
In fact, she won the gold for that world meet, and she'll be on the plane the first time in 54 years. We're on the same load together.
Jay, you're a very distinguished member of USPA. You've been in the sport for a while. What is taking her, another hugely historic and pioneer of the sport, taking her on a skydive? What does that mean to you right now?
Oh man, it's an honor. It's a privilege and an honor because I've jumped with her 3 times already. This is going to be number 4. Magic moments and all that stuff. I mean, she's just such a sweetheart, you know that?
Yeah, she's always smiling.
Always, always.
We are looking at the 1962 skydiving team. Ladies. When was the last time you were on a plane together?
What?
When was the last time you were on an airplane together?
62, yeah.
1962. And then again today.
And again today.
Well, we've been on the up-down here jumping in between.
But we're never on the same flight.
Never on the same plane.
We've jumped in between and done tandems and everything.
How does it feel
going
right now?
Gosh.
You better just not ram me.
Super duper. I won't ram you.
All right, Miller, so your grandma is obviously a longtime skydiver, super accomplished skydiver.
Yep.
How do you feel now making your first jump with her?
It's a huge honor, you know. I mean, this is something that I've been looking forward to since she was inducted in 2013. So, I mean, this is 3 years that I've been waiting to do this. You know, I'm more than ecstatic.
Is there any thoughts in your future of becoming a skydiver and following her footsteps?
Either a skydiver or probably a pilot, something like that. I mean, but I don't see myself not hanging out on a drop zone for the rest of my life.
Right on. Awesome to hear. Drawn to the sky.
It is a once-in-a-lifetime event. It's about time that we all got together. And
how long have you been planning a jump like this?
Since he was born. Yep, okay. Excited, definitely excited.
What's it feel like jumping with 3 generations? You know, she's been a skydiver for 50 plus years now, it seems like, and you're a skydiver. How's that feel to you?
Amazing. I'm so blessed to have this opportunity and to be born into the sport, and now to be able to pass it to my son and let him get a little taste of heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's the most afraid? This guy? Yeah. Who's gonna be screaming the loudest?
Yeah. Waving, no.
Okay. Who's gonna be the first one out of the plane?
I don't know.
Have we thought about it?
I don't think so. Haven't even thought about it.
All right. Well, he's looking a little white, so I have to toss him out first.
Yeah, we might have to do that.
Let him follow. Say, if my grandma can do it, I sure can do it.
Send one of them out first and then one behind me. That way.
There you go. We'll get them right in the middle.
There you go. Mom goes first, and then Grandma pushes you.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's the best.
Here's your story, let's begin. The water's fine, come on, dive in. The future's here, it's right before your eyes. Step by step, you're on your way. Welcome to a brighter day. Don't you know it feels good to be alive? You could be larger than life, bigger than the world, living out the hopes and dreams of every boy and every girl. You could fly higher than the sky, shine brighter than the stars. You could have all you ever wanted, shoot the moon and reach for Mars. You know you could.
Very nice.
So, was that more or less fun than you thought it was going to be?
That was hands down one of the most exhilarating things I've ever done.
Awesome. So, hey, now how do you feel about what all the stuff your grandma did?
I understand it now.
Awesome, huh?
This portion of the program is brought to you by Sun Pet Products. Make every jump an odyssey. The SunPath student. SunPath quality. Skyhook equipped. Less than $2,400. See your SunPath dealer for more information or go to sunpath.com.
The USPA Gold Medal for Meritorious Service is an honor. Outstanding Americans who, by their efforts over a period of years, have made significant contributions to the skydiving community. Tonight we have to honor a very special person. That person is Mr. Bill Jones. Well, what do you think, boss?
I think this is fantastic, and I am so pleased and humble. But I do want to say one thing. This entire crowd here, I have 15 of my immediate family here to see this presentation. Of those 15, 12 of them are skydivers. So I have to acknowledge my family and my family's support, and I thank you.
One picture, Bill. I am standing with the one and only Bill Jones. He just, congratulations on your gold medal. It's a USPA, huge honor. How do you feel right now?
I am humble. I somehow don't believe I deserve it, but I've been here a long time and done a lot of things.
You have. Tell me a little bit about yourself. You've opened many drop zones. You've created one of the largest skydiving families there is. I'm pretty sure maybe the largest. Tell me a little bit more.
Well, one of the things that I have always been into is teaching people to skydive and the safety of skydiving. And I have only one for sure bragging thing in my skydiving career. I've taught hundreds of thousands of people to over 100,000 people to skydive, both military and civilian. And in any of my operations, I have never had a student fatality in my operations. And so that's my bragging. That's what I am most proud of.
Incredible.
But I'm also proud of my family. In my family, I was told, I'm not sure this is true, but there's less than 2,000 master parachute riggers been certified since 1929. Mm-hmm. There are 7 of them in my family.
That's pretty incredible. Absolutely. Yeah. How does it feel having them here to support you?
Oh, this is the most fantastic thing in the world. To have them here, to have them all together. This is a very, very, very special occasion for me.
Absolutely.
Pops!
Yeah.
We love you!
So, there we go. We're here at the Skydive Museum. Tell me what the museum and the Hall of Fame means to you.
Well, it's a very important part of who we are and what we do. And if we don't give credit to those people who are the best and the most creative in our profession, then we miss out. Yeah. And we need to have those memories, and we go back to the people from the beginning. And you know, I am a latecomer to this Hall of Fame thing, and it's important to acknowledge the people who make it happen.
Absolutely.
This portion of the program is brought to you by Fisher Space Pen, American dependability.
So I want to introduce Art Thompson. For those that weren't here yesterday, Art was the project director for the Red Bull Stratus mission at Felix Baumgartner jump. And he's got some amazing, amazing stories about that jump. And one of the stories that he told me, and I want to get a little feedback from him, was that he went down to Walmart or somebody and got a bunch of GoPros. And why did you do that?
Well, Red Bull had 19 high-definition cameras. They had all these red cameras, and we had talked to them about, operating at a near-space environment, all these different cameras. And so they, Jay, who was coordinating all of that, said that when he went to Red to talk about using those cameras, they said, for operating those at a high altitude, without a doubt, in that environment, without a doubt, 100%, they would definitely fail. So they had pressure containers and all these different systems that we had to support with cooling systems. So I went down to the local Best Buy and bought the GoPros that we used on Felix's chest pack and some of the ones on his legs, which was great because when we ran them through our altitude chamber, we made a chamber and everything on Red Bull Stratos for the capsule, all the electrical systems, everything we put on the capsule, we ran through our altitude chamber at Sage Cheshire, and we ran it up to the equivalent of 220,000 feet and minus 110 degrees Fahrenheit. And so what was really amazing was that the GoPros had no problem operating in those temperatures. We actually, the little handheld Panasonics and Sonys actually worked well at those temperatures. The screens would go black, but they kept filming, which was great. And so a lot of the most epic footage of Red Bull Stratus with Felix and Freefall was just a camera I bought at the local electronics store.
So you can see where some of the stuff that, like he says, you can just buy in a hardware store or electronics store. So with Alan, everybody knows Alan Eustace. Alan made 4 jumps today in our Pro-Am, as did Luke. And so, Alan, what was something that you had that was like just bought down the street?
Well, it's funny that we used the GoPros because they said, because Red Bull had used the GoPros, so they had been our whole test suite for GoPros. But one funny story is we had a balloon, and we were doing an unmanned balloon launch, and we had a static launch, very different from what Red Bull did because we had a much smaller balloon. And on the bottom of the helium section, there's a collar, and that collar is meant to make sure that the helium stays in the top half, because if that collar comes off, what will happen early, and this happened in a test, that collar came off early, and then this helium balloon looks like a big sail, and it just blows over and destroys the balloon, and if you're not careful, destroys people, equipment, things like that. And so we had a failure of this balloon, this launch, and Blickies, Luke and Blickies are kind of equivalent people in our projects. Blickies went down to the Walmart and got a sewing machine. He went and got a bunch of fabrics, and he designed, built, overnight basically, and tested a collar that was probably maybe 10 times stronger just overnight. So, you know, going down to the local Walmart seems like a prerequisite. You should definitely, whatever project you're on, make it pretty close to it. make sure there's a Walmart close by.
So after yesterday, we know that Luke is the, just to introduce Luke Akins, who was on the project with Art and the Red Bull Stratos, but he also had his famous jump without a parachute into a net jump, and we always like to hear parts of that story. But yesterday we found out that Luke is like the king of skunk works, figuring it out, MacGyver, junk, getting junk out of the yard and figuring out how to do something. I just, tell something about your jump that you just kind of had to use, something that you weren't sure about.
Well, I went the other way. I started out with the high-end stuff like these guys did with the goggles with the oxygen systems and stuff. I went from 25,000 feet. And I didn't want to jump with a huge oxygen bottle, so I went back and forth from holding the tube in my mouth to all different kinds of things. And the goggles that I had, some real fancy Smith goggles, maybe some special ones, keep them from fogging up. I had some really fancy helmets. I tried all of these really fancy helmets, trying to make sure that I could take this mask off. And what I did, I actually went back to what I was jumping out from 25,000 feet, and I wanted to be as comfortable as possible when I landed in the net. So what I did is I went back to what I have, 18,000 jumps. I almost always wear sunglasses when I skydive. I went back to wearing a normal skydiving helmet and sunglasses, what I do every time, and I didn't have to worry about anything fogging up or any of that.
That is very cool. So this is a question, I don't know if Mary Todd's in the audience, but it's a question from Mary Todd, and here's what she says. Projects such as those that you've all undertaken usually achieve more than they originally intended, and the way of developing new technologies. What new technologies do you think were developed with your project that were used for other applications that we might be aware of or not aware of today?
Well, first of all, I was the first man in space, and we demonstrated that man could work in space, and that was when that helped NASA when they got started. And the other thing we did was develop a drogue chute that I used to get down successfully. But that drogue chute idea is still being used today, some 55 years later. On every ejection seat in the world, they use a small drogue chute to stabilize the system until they get down low altitude, and then they pull disconnect the man from the seat and the parachute opens, or if it's at low altitude, it helps deploy the system quickly. So the contribution we made was the man in space and the drogue chute that's still being used today.
There was also, during Joe's time, was automatic openers were being developed, and some of the first application for automatic openers were on Joe's program too. So there was There's probably a bunch of other things that Joe's not talking about, but for Stratos, what's interesting is when I first flew over in 2005 to talk to Red Bull about the concept of how we would break Joe's record. They wanted it as simple as possible. Can we take a guy up on a cord, on a balloon, and just fly him up and release him? And I said, that's completely crazy. And at the time, you would have never been able to do Alan's jump because the liability and all the concerns over litigation and all the people who had been sued. On Nick Pantania's jump, Nick Pantania had, everybody on that program was sued, and so that caused a lot of problems. David Clark, who built our spacesuits for the Stratos program, had to basically recertify all the suits. So getting back to the question, which was what technology, my point was that with Stratos, our point was really, Red Bull got the marketing out of it, but for us, we're looking at that there are a lot of private space companies looking at how to put people into near space. And what we wanted to look at is how do we get them down? How do we bring them back, which was really more important for us, and how do we develop the safety systems that can then go on to other industries? Because I knew NASA and the Air Force would benefit from the technology we developed. And so a lot of the things we developed in our life support systems, we took a S-1034 suit, which was the same spacesuit that they used for the U-2 program for high altitude flights. It's the same suit that they used for crew escape suits for the space shuttle, for all the different space shuttle flights. But as with all of these suits, when they inflate, they're in a seated position. They're in a pilot position, so a pilot can control the plane, which is absolutely the worst position to be in for a skydiver. And so what we did was we were the first company to buy spacesuits. We bought 3 S-1034s, and then worked with David Clark Company in reconfiguring the suit to rotate the hip sockets and rotate the arm sockets so it's in a delta position for free fall. And then we tailored the suit down because the S-1034, when it inflates, is pretty large, and it's very hard to move your arms or move around at all. So by tailoring it down, we created a more flexible, more maneuverable spacesuit, in essence. And that technology now has gone on to some of the new designs for a lot of the new spacesuits. Some of the other things developed were my patented design for the hingeless door system. And so when the door is closed at altitude, the capsule, which operates at 8 psi, so equivalent of 16,000 feet, when it's pressurized, you have 10,000 pounds of pressure holding the door shut. So it's not going to go anywhere. There's no reason for a hinge, for a latch, for any kind of mechanism. So you get rid of all that weight. And that is really beneficial for future aircraft and space programs potentially for being able to build pressurized systems that you eliminate all that weight and all the mechanical need. There's no reason for all that. When the director at NASA and the Air Force Surgeon General saw the hingeless door operate and have it drop into the track and roll aside, they both went, "We need this." And so I thought, okay, I better patent this. So some of the things to come out of that, our capsule was pressurized to 8 psi. Now there's an important part of that. Joe's basket was an open gondola. So he had full exposure all the way through his flight. Joe's program operated on a shoestring budget because the Air Force didn't want to spend any money. They were focusing on the rocket program, and Joe and his team, which were doing all this secret development of safety systems for the astronauts, they weren't putting a lot of money into it, strangely enough. And so they wanted them to get by with whatever they could. So you got to respect Joe in that he was using duct tape on his snowsuit covering his spacesuit. It worked. And using an open basket. And so what happens is, just like the bends, when you get up to the Armstrong line at 61,050 feet, there's not enough pressure in the atmosphere, because right here we've got about 14 pounds of pressure holding everything in. When you go up into altitude, there's not enough pressure and all the gas in your blood comes out of suspension. So for Stratos, we developed a pressurized capsule to reduce the risk of DCS, decompression sickness. So Felix's entire flight, he flew at 8 psi, pressurized in a capsule, which is 16,000 foot equivalent, throughout his entire flight. So we went through an hour and 15 minutes of pre-breathing, like all the astronauts and U-2 pilots do. And then he flew for 2.5 hours at 16,000 feet. And even though he's flying through minus 90 degrees Fahrenheit, it was actually 50 degrees inside the capsule with all the electronics and the body heat. So he was pretty comfortable. That's why we call Felix the asset. And so we had to take care of him. And so with this, the pressurization system of 8 psi, we were trying to prove that we could eliminate decompression sickness. After the program, the other thing too is that if Felix freaked out on us and he had a meltdown and decided to open up his faceplate, he had an environment in the capsule that would support life, because he was at 16,000 feet. It'd be like you standing on a mountain. And so we always kept even though Felix was breathing pure oxygen, we always kept the atmosphere in the capsule between 20 to 28% oxygen, and the rest is nitrogen. It's basically what you're breathing here. In Apollo, that was the big lesson, was 100% oxygen causes a fire and you burn up very quickly. So we wanted to keep the flammability down. Even though Felix is breathing pure oxygen, he's in an environment he could actually open. We wouldn't fly higher, we'd just bring him down. So the end result of that and a few other technologies, because there are a bunch more, I don't want to go in too long because Joe will start kicking me, is that post Red Bull Stratos, one of the things we developed was we worked with the Air Force and we built a U-2 cockpit. The U-2 has been flown at atmospheric pressure inside of the cockpit at 22,500 feet is what the pilot flies at. And his suit doesn't pressurize until you get to 35. But even though he's breathing pure oxygen, you get decompression sickness. You get all the gas starts coming out of suspension out of your blood, and all those bubbles start floating around your lungs, in your heart, in your brain, and it causes disorientation. It's like having the bends. But in the Air Force, they have a thing that if you're flying and you get decompression sickness, and you admit that you get decompression sickness, you're out. So if you ask any U-2 pilot in service, if they ever get decompression sickness, they will very quickly tell you, no, never get decompression sickness. And if you ask any U-2 pilot who's out of commission, did you ever get decompression sickness? They'll say, all the time, used to always get it. So when we approached Tom Travis, the Air Force Surgeon General, we said, there needs to be better understanding, better communication, because we're encouraging people to lie. We need to look at how do we fix the system for everybody by learning from our mistakes. And part of that was building a fuselage, a U-2 fuselage. I got to ignore Roberta because she's giving me the... We built a U-2 fuselage that we took to San Antonio, to Brooks City Center, which is where we did the atmospheric testing for the Stratos capsule. And we had somebody in a spacesuit in the U-2 capsule, U-2 fuselage, and we ran it at 8.5 psi, so very similar to the Red Bull Stratos capsule. We ran it at 15,000 feet. So the U-2 is run at 22,500 feet since its conception in the 50s. And a year and a half, 2 years ago, we proved that if we raise the pressure inside of the fuselage of a U-2, we could eliminate decompression sickness. And as of last year, for the first time since conception of the U-2, all the U-2 flights now fly at 8.5 psi, and they've eliminated decompression sickness from the pilots. So that's just one of the things. There's a bunch of different technology, but as an example of what the public isn't aware of.
This portion of the program is sponsored by Cypress, the #1 in AAD technology.
Thank you.
So in our project, we really wanted to take scuba diving and move it into the stratosphere, where scuba diving allows you to basically be totally and completely self-sufficient. So whereas, that meant I had to have oxygen on me and enough, not just to, like go down, but enough oxygen to actually live for, 5-6 hours. I had to have internal heating. The suit had to be heated, which none of them had ever been, no spacesuit had ever been heated before. Because in the space station and the moonwalks and things like that, ILC suits needed cooling, they didn't need heating. So we did that. And the idea there was simply that, so many times you end up having to build a aircraft and incorporate life support into it. But if you can separate those two problems, each of the two problems becomes easier. And so our thought was, if you had a spacesuit that was self-contained, that you could fly it in an airplane, you could fly it in a rocket, you could go tandem hang gliding, you could do skydiving. All you needed to do was come up with the one thing that would do it all. And skydiving was actually the hardest of all possible applications for such a suit. But no matter how else you would use that suit, you could always use skydiving as an emergency exit from whatever configuration you were in. So that was the main thing. But there's so many, anytime you have a project like this, there's so many things that you do that have never been done before. I mean, our launch system was this static launch system that had never been done in a balloon size that was that big. We had a really beautiful system for drogue deployment that would allow you to get the drogue out immediately but not have any worry of entanglement, which is what happened on Joe's first jump. And so we eliminated that. We had a beautiful system to eliminate moisture and CO2 from the system, because moisture can cause fogging, fogging can cause freezing, freezing can cause lack of spatial awareness. And we had a beautiful system that had been designed for us that solved that particular problem. The suit we had was pressurized to 5.4 psi, also because of decompression sickness. And no American suit had ever been pressurized at that, and still maintain the mobility and things. So there's just tons of things that we learned along the way, and there's a lot of papers that have been written on it to share those results.
What was the question again? No, I'm just joking. I think it's really cool when I sit up here on a stage. I'm pretty just blown away. I'm on a stage with Kittinger and Art and Alan, and to call these guys my friends is really, really cool. When I look back here and I see this, though, listen to the stories, I see what we learned and what your question is, what technology is advanced. Well, Felix learned from Joe what to do. Alan learned from Felix's and Art's jump what to do. It's kind of like a progression, and then I went the opposite way and I just went down. But for me, on Alan's jump, the coolest thing about it, I don't know if you guys ever really could see it, but how his drogue comes out, if you think of a tape measure, unspooling a tape measure, when he showed me how that worked, it unspools and then it becomes a hard, rigid pole, and that kept the drogue from tangling around you. I mean, that was a brilliant thing, and I'm sure it has future applications for that. For my jump, I took a lot of pre-existing things, and I like to think that what would advance from mine, I really don't think that jumping into a net from altitude is anything that it's going to take off anytime soon. and it shouldn't. It's a lot of danger going into that. But for me, I wanted to prove to little kids out there, to anybody. I met Larry's grandkids a few minutes ago, Bagley's grandkids, and they were so impressed, and they think it's really cool. What I like is that it showed what I did. I just wanted to show that you don't have to be, you got to be a little bit crazy to do something like that, but you can get to that by doing a nice test program. You know, you can do a flight test program to prove it out and make it as safe as possible so it becomes a calculated risk instead of this crazy risk. And I hope that my son and the other guys take away from what I did is that just because somebody says it's impossible, it doesn't mean it is. And, you know, Muhammad Ali actually said, I learned this after my jump, that impossible is an opinion, not a fact. And I think that's really cool. And it's a good lesson for all the kids out there. If my son wanted to do what I did, I don't know if I'd be so stoked. But.
So I'd like to ask Joe, about how many practice jumps you made, and how did you feel when you knew this was the one that you were going to do?
Thank you, Linda. Before I answer that question, I want to have a little preliminaries here. I want to recognize the mainstays of our existence, my wife, Sherry, and Roberta. Would you please stand up? Stand up, Roberta, stand up, Sherry. And Monica is doing a parachute jump right now, but when you see a real pretty girl come in, that's going to be Monica. The other thing is, you know, we are members of the USPA. Now, how many people saw Luke make his jump? Put your hand up. Everybody. Well, we are the members of the USPA, but Luke is the president and the CEO of the following organization: United States No Parachute Association. And he is the president and only member of the organization. United States No Parachute Association. That's it. I'm just delighted to be here, and I got to meet so many old friends that in the parachuting business, and that's been a lot of fun for me. And I got the chance to fly two of Larry's beautiful airplanes, and what to be better than to drink beer and talk with parachutists? I can't think of anything better than that. And flying that airplane today was the most fun I've ever had with my clothes on. It was really something fantastic. I'm often asked when I first started jumping, and I'll tell you real quick. I was at El Centro. El Centro was the Fort Bragg of the Navy. That's where they did all their parachute testing and they trained their jumpers. And you had to make 10 jumps, all of them free falls. The Navy did not believe in rope jumps because they didn't use them going into combat or anything else. So the only parachutes they jumped were free fall. So I got tight one night and I volunteered. The next day I went up on a DC-3, 8,000 feet over El Centro with a seat pack of all things. Can you imagine making your first jump with a damn seat pack with a CG down at your butt? Anyway, I jumped out, did 15 spins, and opened my parachute, and then spent the rest of the time trying to unwind the damn parachute. And I made 10 jumps and got my Navy parachutist rating. When I got ready to get my Air Force rating, my senior rating, I had to make 5 static line, 5 rope jumps to get my Air Force rating. And then I got my master rating at the 10th Special Forces Group in Bad Toll. So I'm probably an unusual person that has a Navy rating, an Air Force rating, and an Army rating. But I had an awful lot of fun with those guys. And when we did the Excelsior program, we were doing it for pilots and astronauts. And pilots are not skydivers, and astronauts are not skydivers. So we were designing a system that could be used by any pilot, any astronaut. And free falling was not one of them, because they can't do that. So we had to develop a system that would get a person down from very high altitude without free falling. We worked with a series of different drag devices, and the best thing we could come up with was a 5-foot diameter drogue chute that deployed about 16 seconds after I jumped. Now, if I was jumping from an aircraft, I'd already be at terminal velocity, and I could deploy the chute immediately, the drogue chute. But since I was in a balloon, I had to free fall to get close to terminal velocity. From 102,000 feet, it takes about 23 seconds to get for terminal velocity. I fell for 17 seconds, and that was sufficient velocity to deploy the drogue chute. In any event, it worked perfect. The drogue chute gave me absolute great stability, and that system is still being used today, the drogue chute, as I just pointed out. So I had a great team of people. You can't do these types of programs without a dedicated team. It's all teamwork. You have to work together. You have to have a common goal, a common destiny, and without a good team, you can't make it. And the other three things you got to have. Here's the three things you got to have. First of all, you have to have confidence in your equipment. The second thing is you have to have confidence in your team. And third thing, you have to have confidence in yourself. Those are the three things you got to have. And a prayer once in a while doesn't hurt. I have had a wonderful career in the United States Air Force. I ended up with 18,000 hours of flying and 93 different airplanes. I had a wonderful career. I'm still flying airplanes, still flying balloons, still having a hell of a good time. And my wonderful wife makes it a lot of fun. So thank you very much.
This portion of the program is brought to you by Sun Pat Products. Make every jump an odyssey. The SunPath student. SunPath quality. Skyhook equipped. Less than $2,400. See your SunPath dealer for more information or go to sunpath.com.
So real quick, I'd like to know between you two, how many team members you had and what special, some of the special, not all of them, but special people you had to have that were sort of outside the skydiving that, made it possible.
Well, on Red Bull Stratos, sometimes you see this picture of it's like 200 people. I think on the final jump, Luke and Joe and I are looking around going, where'd all these people come from? Because we didn't know a lot of them. There was a lot of support crew, because in the end, a lot of it was the catering people and the media groups and the news teams, and not to take away from, any of those guys, because it was great having them there supporting the effort, because it exponentially grew with every trip we took. But it's like on our first jump, I think there was probably like 30 of us, including the entire launch crew. It started out as a very small group of maybe 12 or 15 people on the program, and developing some of the technologies. Some of the special people on the program, we had Scott Lofton, our electrical engineer, was a brilliant guy who was on the team that helped develop the first digital camera. And you look at some of these guys, Einar Evelson, who was a test pilot, flew U-2s, SR-71s, 300 different aircraft, but brought this wealth of knowledge. Had probably been in a pressure suit more than anybody on Earth. And Mike Todd, our life support engineer, who Mike wishes he was here with you guys, because he is definitely part of the PIA family. Mike Todd was jumping in the early days, with Ted Strong and those guys modifying parachutes in the parking lot, and back east. And Mike had more experience suiting up people in pressure suits than anybody, and so his background and knowledge was incredibly, valuable for the team. So it was really, I think Mike said in the end, there was 3 of us from my original team, 3 or 4 of us, Joe, myself, Mike, and Felix, and probably Einar in the end, that were on the original team. Luke got brought in. I was so fortunate to find Luke, and Luke was actually, we had Stan Gray, who was a great guy. Stan Gray with Red Bull coordinates a lot of their aircraft and stuff, and Stan was in the middle of something, couldn't help me. It's like I needed somebody to help do some of the helicopter coordination, and I brought, he said, I've got this guy Luke, you can borrow him for these flights you're doing out at Cal City. So Cal City used to be a jump zone, and at the time when we were doing stuff, there was nothing going on in Cal City, which was perfect for us because we were trying to operate in secrecy. So we went up to Cal City, which was close to our facility, and they let me borrow Luke, and we had high winds at the time. And Luke got his first Felix experience, which he had heard stories before about, and I won't even repeat some of the things. You'll have to get the book to read some of it. So, but yeah, there was a lot of yelling and screaming and arm waving, and it was just like shaking my head going, here we go. And BBC was filming the whole thing, and Luke was like, oh, the stories I heard are true, you know. So that was his first experience on the program. And as soon as I saw Luke's capabilities as far as coordinating efforts and helicopters, and then went on to see that I would merely mention an idea and Luke would fly back to Washington and get his sewing machine out and sew up some rig and jump out of an airplane and call me the next morning going, Art, it works, you know. I mean, I couldn't have asked for anybody better. So as soon as I saw Luke, I was like, this is the guy. Sorry, Stan, you're out. Luke's in. And so just an incredible team of guys that worked together. One of the things we discovered on Red Bull Stratos was that physiologists in the military, ex-military, don't talk to psychologists. You know, they don't communicate. And so one of the challenges on Stratos, I called myself, you know, the engineer that was actually the glorified social worker, because I had to figure out how to get a marketing company, Red Bull, who wants to sell product, to work with a bunch of ex-military guys who were all about flight test and flight test groups with operational pilot, and how do I get engineers to talk together, and the medical guys to talk to the psychologists, who they, in the early days, had no respect for each other, and then realized, oh wait, the psychologists do biofeedback, which was an important part of the psychology of how do you get a guy to jump out 24 and a half miles up, you know? So it was a coordination effort of bringing this team, and we were so lucky that in the end, I say we started out as a flight test program, and when we were finished, we were a family, you know? That was important. And it's just like PIA. What I love about you guys is everybody hugs, you know? Everybody knows me as a hugger. And everybody hugs because you are one big family. You all love each other and appreciate it. And you appreciate from the early days, you know, with Lou and Joe, and understanding and appreciation of people like Tiny, all the way up to the brand new skydivers. And that's an important part of this community. And why it's so important to Joe, when he comes here, he talks all over the world. But coming to PIA is probably one of the most special things for him. It really is. So that's important. So worked with a great team.
One thing I want to know, how many you started with and how many people you finished with. But also, Andy Keach had a question that I want you to incorporate into that. And he kind of would like to know what your a little insight into what your long-range goals are. Are you going to do anything else? Do you have anything more to do in sort of the stratosphere?
So the idea of scuba diving for the stratosphere obviously hadn't been done, but I asked Peter Diamandis, who did the X Prize thing, if there's anybody that I could talk to, because I had already researched it for about a year by myself, and I thought it's just possible that you could do scuba diving equivalent in the stratosphere. And he introduced me to Tabor McCallum, who Tabor's company, Paragon Space Development Systems, has two products. One is a suit for toxic environments, and the second product is life support systems for spacecraft. So I couldn't have actually talked to anybody who was more perfect. And then later I found out Tabor's a member of the Explorers Club for his work in Biosphere 2. So I happened to get the one person in the whole world that was both interested in the project and excited about the project, and had the team that was necessary to actually do it. And then along the way, there were, you know, amazing people, you know, that, you know, made it happen. Jared's sitting right there. Jared built the life support system for me. He's also got a book that he'll, you know, sell you and sign later. But he He built the life support system. Miles C. Dover built the spacesuit. A guy named Ryan was kind of the key person. Mitch also was a key person in that effort. Blicky's, we thought we were going to use a standard Sigma rig, and he ended up building 11 rigs for me. The last one actually had the main on the top, reserve on the bottom, due to the connection to the drogue system. And he also invented the drogue system that was talked about earlier. Anyway, and not only that, every time I jumped that rig, he had to, because the main was on top, he had to pack the main first and then the reserve. So every time he did a reserve repack for me. Anyway, the core team was maybe 20 people, something like that. People that helped were probably in the 75 range or something like that. But in the end, probably the core, I mean, we didn't have publicity. It was all a small team. We didn't bring anybody else in for the jump so that we could kind of stay focused. We thought that if a lot of people were there, it might cause us to make bad decisions. About maybe the wind was one knot more than but there were 600 people around, so we decided not to do that. And also, we didn't really have either the budget or the inclination to do the kinds of things that you'd have to do in real time. And one of the amazing things in the Red Bull Stratus, which I don't think they get enough credit for, is the added difficulty of doing something real time versus having nobody there. And so if we canceled it, nobody would know. But it is kind of funny. We did 3 balloon jumps, 57,000 foot, 105,000 foot in the record, out of Roswell, and nobody noticed. Not a single person noticed. So anyway, and then as far as what I'm going to do next, I have a little deal with my wife. She was not so happy about this whole idea of jumping from the stratosphere. She was fine with the technology. She just didn't want me to be the one that jumped it. Anyway, in the end, my promise to her was that I wouldn't do anything extremely dangerous after that jump. And so now we're spending all our time negotiating what extremely dangerous means. But skydiving is fine, flying helicopters is fine, submersible, deep sea, submarines, that's fine. So I haven't really come to anything and she said no to at this point. But I'm pretty sure if it involves stratosphere, there's a good chance she'll say no. Oh yeah, no, it's funny. After the jump, it was kind of a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Everybody, that phrase got used a lot. And then I was going to make a trip to Hawaii because I got invited to go in a deep sea submersible. And it's a long story on how, but I had this opportunity to go down 1,325 meters in this submersible with the University of Hawaii. And their acronym is the Hawaii Undersea Research Laboratory, and the acronym is HURL, which on this boat was a common thing. But anyway, I went to my wife and I said, "Hey, can I go do this?" I said, "It's a once-in-a-life opportunity." And she looks at me and she goes, "How many once-in-a-life opportunities do you need?" Anyway, that's where we are.
So one last question to Luke. Luke, what did you think when you were invited on to that, when Art called you and said, would you like to join this? What went through your head?
Actually, I was sent out by Red Bull to take some pictures. That was it. And I got there, and Ted Strong had made the first rig for these guys. And I get there, and I've been in skydiving a long time, been a tandem master a long time, not strong rated, but I know that you have to pull handles in the right order or bad stuff happens. And I looked at this rig that they were using, and I said, "Hey, Felix, you've been trained to use tandem stuff." And he was like, "No, well, a lot of experienced jumpers pull handles in the wrong order. You got to pay attention, and you really got to go through this 1, 2, 3, 4 over and over and over again." And sure enough, we were up on the helicopter, and I'm only supposed to take pictures. I'm in the helicopter. I climb out, and the drogue, when he deployed the drogue, a free bag comes off of it. There's a helicopter, we're at maybe 17,000 feet, and there's another helicopter down below us that's filming. I climb out of the helicopter, I look down, and I notice the other helicopter is downwind of us. And instantly, I think, when he deploys, that free bag's gonna come off, and the helicopter's gonna be filming Felix, and they're gonna fly into the drogue, and everybody's gonna die. So I climbed back in the helicopter, and I said, tell the other helicopter to move west so that they're not downwind of the jump. And everyone's like, huh? I said, just tell them to move east. And they moved. I watched them scoot out of the way. We jumped, we landed. That particular jump, Felix pulled the handles in the wrong order where he deployed the drogue, but instead of releasing the drogue, he cut away the main. And then he went to pull the reserve because the reserve wasn't working, but he was pulling on the reserve cutaway, which was locked out, thank goodness, so that at altitude, if the reserve opened, he needs to be able to cut away because there's not enough oxygen. So he's pulling on that in the wrong order, and luckily he fumbles around, finds the right handle, pulls it, the Cypress fires, but he beats the Cypress. All that stuff happened, and it was that night that they called me into their office, and they said, hey, you want to come on this and give us a hand? And that was kind of how I got to be part of the Red Bull Stratos program.
This portion of the program is brought to you by Paragear, serving skydivers since 1960.
I'm not going to take an hour. On DCS, I made 100 flights to 100,000 feet. I never had DCS. There was hundreds of thousands of pilots that flew during World War II that flew at 30 and 40,000 feet. None of them bitched. The DCS is something that's a neat thing to think about, but there's been a hell of a lot of people fly at 30, 40,000 feet without having any damn problem. So I never had a DCS problem. So anyway, it's kind of overexploited. The other thing is that I was doing my jumps for pilots. They didn't want me to have a lot of jumps because they didn't want to contaminate what we were doing by saying he was a skilled skydiver. So I made one parachute jump from 30,000 feet with the pressure suit and with the drogue chute with my rig. So I had one test jump with the pressure suit and my parachute. That was it. The first jump I made from 76,000 feet was my 30th parachute jump. When I jumped 103,000 feet, that was my 33rd parachute jump because I was there to do it for pilots and astronauts. So they didn't want me to have a lot of experience. So the DCS is fun to think about, but it's not the end of the world. As I said, there were hundreds of thousands of people that flew up there for years and years without any problem. Now all of a sudden it's a big deal. But once again, thank you for listening to my BS, and I enjoyed meeting all of you. And I hope we can have a beer at the bar, please.
I was going to say that on the jump that Luke was referring to, the jump before that, we did some testing out at Paris. And Felix, being a base jumper, he doesn't know what a reserve is, and he doesn't know what an automatic opener is. But I definitely did. And so while we're in Paris, I grabbed the rig and I took it in and I said, do me a favor, put an automatic opener on this rig. And that next jump was the one that Felix, as he pulled, the pin was firing because the line was clean, but the pin was shot. So it's kind of interesting to see. He opened at 500 feet AGL on that jump.
It was funny because we were going to use a standard Sigma rig. And so I talked to Mark Prokos and I said, hey, I need to buy a rig. And he goes, you can't buy a rig unless you're a tandem instructor. And he said, we need to do that. And so we started actually, Blicky's put me through the tandem instructor thing so that we could get those handles right every time. And so we did a bunch of jumps in various places, but we went down to Paris Valley and I was only like 4 or 5 jumps short of getting my instructor's rating. But But and I work with Scott Smith, you know, for lots of times on previous projects and on this one. So I come down and Mark says, hey, you know, probably the best thing for you to do is actually go with some, you know, novice, some people that don't know how to skydive for your last few, just so you get a feel for what that's like. And so Scott goes to Dan BC at Paris and says, hey, Alan's, and I didn't even need a rig from them. Actually, Bill Booth sent me a rig. So I had a brand new tandem Sigma system. I walk up and Scott's with me. We say to Dan, hey, he wants to take a few, you know, jumpers out. Is that going to be okay? And Dan says, no way. And of course, Dan didn't know anything about it. Why does some 56-year-old guy with a brand new rig from Bill Booth want to take, you know, people up? But so anyway, so we made a deal that day that his instructors would take up my friends that I had brought out, and his instructors would fly with me for my last, you know, 4 jumps. And so that's how we closed it out. But this handle thing, basically making sure that you get the right handles. And the other nice thing is I didn't have to have a reserve cutaway because I had enough oxygen, even up high, to be able to get down in a reasonable period of time. So that's where this having a huge amount of extra oxygen with me all the time, that eliminated this bailout problem where you only have 10, maybe 20 minutes of oxygen, period. So you have to open low.
So we're at 4 o'clock, and Lou? Okay.
Love Gardner pulled out of the program for a year. What can you tell us about that episode?
Short, sweet. It's 4 o'clock.
He's never been short. Impossible. Okay, so I'll try and condense this story. So Felix, we were at Sage Cheshire. We're getting ready to do egress testing. Joe was there, Andy Pilmanis, our chief physiologist who did all the pre-breathing for NASA and the Air Force. The entire engineering team were ready to do testing. Felix would show up at 9 in the morning. We were there at like 5:36 in the morning, the whole team getting prepped. So it's coming up on 9 o'clock and I get this telephone call and it's Felix and he's crying on the phone. And he says, Art, I can't do it. You got to come to LAX and you got to buy me a ticket. I'm going home. And I said, okay, quit shitting me, Felix. You're at Starbucks and you want me to come have a cup of coffee with you. And he said, no, seriously, I got to go home. I can't do this. I gotta leave. And I said, Felix, quit goofing around. I got Joe here. I got all these guys. He's like, no, seriously, I can't do it. So I walked in, told the guys, hey, hang out. I'll be right back. And so they're like, well, what's going on? I said, give me 2 hours. So I jump in the car, go to LAX. Felix is filming himself crying at the airport, waiting for me to get there to buy him a ticket. So I say, what's going on? He says, I don't know, it's just feeling closed in, claustrophobic. I can't handle being in the suit. I tried to ignore it, but it just made me sick to my stomach. He says, and I just want to go home. And I said, well, you need to come back and work through it. We'll talk through what the issues are and figure it out. And he's like, nope, I'm going home. You got to buy me a ticket. So I said, okay. He says, well, I know that NASA and the Air Force, that they probably have these problems in the spacesuits. And I said, they have this problem all the time in the spacesuit. And he says, but do they have a way of dealing with it? And I said, they do. They have a way, and it works every single time on how to deal with it. And he says, really? He says, so what do they do? And I said, they get rid of you and they bring in the next guy. And he didn't like that answer. And I said, Felix, if you can't do this, it's okay. We'll come up with a medical reason and we'll bring in somebody and you can help train the next guy to work through it. And Felix said, nope, if I'm not doing it, nobody's going to do this. I want to be the guy. He says, but I've got to go home. It's not going to work. And in the end, he went through a bunch of stuff in Austria that didn't work, and we brought in Andy Pilmanis, or Andy Walsh. Andy Walsh is a Red Bull psychologist that works with all the Olympics guys, really great guy. And Mike Gervais, who is a sports psychologist who works on special forces guys and Olympic athletes. He worked with Luke on Heaven Sent as well, because you got to get your psyche in the right place. And really worked on Felix to work on not only how he reacted with the people in the team and around him, but also how to control himself and do a better job of being part of the team, which we all love Mike Gervais and Andy Walsh because they did bring Felix back from the dark side, which we said would never happen. But when Felix was coming back, we told him, we said, Felix, when you come back, before we're going to let you do this, we're going to torture the hell out of you. Because we're not going to let you get halfway up and freak out on us. So the first thing we did when he came back is we put him in the spacesuit and we inflated the suit and left him there for 5 hours. We're like, if you're going to break right now. And so it was kind of an interesting thing. But Felix did an amazing job. We still, he freaked out on us on the last day, but that's a whole nother story that would take another half an hour.
So, Joe, did you have a psychologist?
On our project, Blicky's, he had this line that I loved. Anytime I complained or bitched or anything about 5 hours in the spacesuit, because all our tests were 5 hours, because the mission was 5 hours or more, he just looked at me and smiled and he says, "This isn't band camp."
So, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you will give these guys a big round of applause.
This portion of the program is sponsored by Cypress, the #1 in AAD technology.
Well, it's Saturday night here at Skydive Arizona. This is the accumulation of this week of good times and gathering here for the 2016 International Skydiving Museum Hall of Fame. Friends and participants and guests are gathering at the banquet hall. You have a beautiful sunset behind us, raining down on this amazing event. Tonight is a very important night for all of skydiving, and an even more special night for 6 very, very distinguished individuals. These 6 members of skydiving, of our sport, are being recognized for their lifetime of achievements tonight, right here, as they are inducted into the 2016 International Skydiving Museum and the Hall of Fame of Skydiving. Let's take a look at what their family and friends have to say.
Pat is my grandfather. We're very, very excited for him. He's the patriarch of our family. We're very excited and to celebrate with him and everyone else as well.
This night is for you and for your husband. You've put up with all of him, all of his stuff over the years, so you are to celebrate too. How do you feel?
Oh, just thrilled. We've kind of done this together over the many, many years, and it's we're really pleased, obviously.
Yeah.
This award for my dad is the outstanding award. He's meant so much to us as our leader of our family, but what he's done for the skydiving community is pretty outstanding.
I would like to say that I am so happy that I have been friends with them for so many years, and we have had so many good times together.
It's very important.
Yeah.
It really is. The people that come after us need to know what went before them and how it got started.
Hey guys, thank you so much for everything you've done for the sport, and I hope one day I can fulfill the dreams that I have, all because of what you what you have brought forward for us. So thanks a lot, guys. Have a great night. You've earned it.
Well, this is a fantastic opportunity for the world to see what they've accomplished, and for all of us to just acknowledge that to them.
Art and Cheryl, hey guys, we're at the induction event. What do you have to say to the 6 new Hall of Famers?
Congratulations, because it's really a very cool honor. It's pretty special.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's a
And
great
Cheryl?
place.
Same thing. It's nice to see. This is the 6th year, and I can't believe that the people that have been inducted are just phenomenal folks.
Congratulations, and thank you for all that you have done for our sport over these years that have merited you to be included in this class.
At a time, tell the camera what you want to say to the 6 new Hall of Fame inductees.
It is just fantastic to see how well and how inspiring it is what they have done to just really open the way for us, you know, especially as new skydivers. So it's, if anything, thank you for being so inspiring.
And I would like to encourage all the younger jumpers to participate in this next year and see what's to come, and just to get a little taste of the history of skydiving.
Yeah, I just want to congratulate all of the inductees, especially handsome Dave DeWolf, who has paved the way for riggers like me, so much appreciated.
Congratulations, thanks for what you guys did. Allows us to have the career and life we do now. We'll stay safe, thanks for staying safe.
I mean, it's hard to say anything better than Mike just said, but thank you for your contributions to the sport and opening the doors for generations following you.
I was just at the National Aviation Hall of Fame last weekend, and to see these rock stars in the aviation industry, and we have our own organization that's doing that for skydiving. I think it's wonderful. Congratulations to past and present and future members.
Welcome.
Welcome. There you go. How's it feel being among the ranks of the top?
Old. We used to struggle to do 2 things: turn a fast series and hit close to the target. Nowadays, my God, you know, the RW stuff is it's just great to see.
Well, it's getting pretty busy here at the banquet. It's only cocktail hour still, so people are showing up. They're getting excited. They're getting their seats. They're hanging out. We're all getting ready to celebrate the new 2016 class for the Hall of Fame. This is truly an evening for the museum record books. Here at Skydive Arizona, we're lucky to be blessed with having some beautiful aircraft that were used over the history of skydiving. We saw gear as it changed through the history. Now we're gonna see some airplanes and how they've changed over the history of skydiving as well. This is a Lockheed Loadmaster, still flying today. This beautiful beast is a DC-3, one of the original planes used in skydiving, one of the most notorious and famous and desired planes to jump out of. Skydive Arizona is one of the few drop zones that still operates one, and we have it here for the museum. Wonderful. I am here with Larry Hill, the owner of the amazing Skydive Arizona. Tell me what it means to you to bring the Skydiving Museum and the Hall of Fame event here in 2016.
Well, we did it once before, and it was a great event. My wife and I, when we started our drop zone, I like to think I'm part of the growth of this sport. And the museum is going to be a true way for us to keep our history. If you notice all the people here, we're getting up in age, and you know, we've all got stories, and this is a way we're going to collect them.
Yeah, definitely. What would you like to say to the future generations about the Skydiving Museum and things that they may not know already?
Well, there's so much that most of the people nowadays don't even know about, that what
a lot of the people that are here had to go through, to make their jumps and that, and the perseverance and stuff they've done to create such a great sport that we have now, and just to remember that, because they're the future, and people 40 years from now are going to look at them like they're the pioneers. So what they do now is going to be a reflection of the future.
Yep. And any final words for our Hall of Fame inductees?
Well, they're all great people, and they all deserve it. And,
wonderful.
There's so many people out there that still deserve it, but it's, we're starting to remember people, and it's important.
This is the first time I've had the privilege of being at one of these, Bo, and it's amazing to be surrounded by these people who are the pioneers of the sport. Such extraordinary history. It is a phenomenal experience. I can't encourage people enough. Come to one of these weekends because it makes your spine tingle to talk to these people.
Yeah. So if people want to get involved and they want to learn more about the Skydiving Museum, what can they do?
Well, the Skydiving Museum, we're just getting underway with the process of designing the ultimate building that will be located in North Orlando. We're very excited to announce that will be taking place. It will be on Interstate 4, a high traffic location, co-located with an iFly 16-foot wind tunnel.
Wow.
And what we've introduced in the last 6 weeks is a program called the Ambassadors Program, and we have already over 30 ambassadors, twice what we anticipated by this point, who have signed up to be a part of promoting the museum, because the truth is, within the skydiving community, most people don't even know about the museum and the Hall of Fame, and that's a problem that we have to solve. So the International Skydiving Museum and Hall of Fame Ambassadors Program allows people to basically be empowered to tell the story of the museum, and we give them lots of tools that help them do that. We give them shirts and business cards and pins and patches and lots of information so they can promote the museum within the skydiving community, because that's vitally important to us.
That they are joining one of the greatest clubs they could ever join. And the reason the club is so great, it's the people that constitute the membership of that club. Finest that skydiving's had to offer.
How have you felt about this event so far?
Probably right in the top two ever of our events, and this is by far the largest dinner that we've ever had. So
over 350, I believe, right?
360 was the number I heard, and of course we lost the Poppenhagers from Florida, plus a couple of other people because of Hurricane Matthew.
Yes.
But other than that, we're good.
This is it. This is the moment that this event has been waiting for, that everybody here is gathered for. In a moment, we are going to be starting the inauguration for the 2016 class of the Skydiving Museum Hall of Fame. This event has been amazing so far. Behind me, you can see how crowded the banquet hall is, and it's not just any other banquet. These are the most impactful and historic and pioneering skydivers that there are. I started skydiving 6 years ago. I'm sort of new to the sport in comparison to other people, and growing up in this sport, you hear these names of people that are just kind of historic figures. Lou Sanborn, D1, Bill Morrissey, he pretty much invented tandem skydiving. We have Joe Kittinger, the first man to jump out of space. And they're all here. They're all here hanging out, having drinks, relaxing, having fun, and just chatting with people. And so as somebody in skydiving, newer and younger, I highly encourage you, to all of our viewers, to come out and experience something like this. Come to an event, come check out the Skydiving Museum and see what the Hall of Fame event has to offer. It's not just boring old talk. It is amazing stories, amazing people, and amazing times.
Good evening. Good evening. And it is that. And welcome to the museum's 7th annual Hall of Fame induction dinner. I'm Kurt Curtis, your MC for the evening. This is the 7th time I've done this, and I was asked a few weeks ago about how I survive this gig year after year. The answer is pretty simple. You don't seat those people who think I'm god-awful next to those who are undecided. And now, as always, we have a brief message from our honorary chairman of the board of the International Skydiving Museum, the 41st President of the United States, D20,000, the Honorable George H.W. Bush.
What a great occasion to get so many wonderful people together. I wish Barbara and I could be with you in person for this weekend to celebrate so much history. I'm honored to be the honorary chairman of this museum and part of this event. Congratulations to all of you being recognized tonight. I thank you for your many contributions to the sport. To the founding trustees of the Skydiving Museum, thank you for bringing our dream closer to reality. And for the rest of you gathered tonight, I thank you for your continued support of the National Skydiving Museum, our museum. All of you play such important roles. Now let's get this thing built.
It's now time to induct the class of 2016 into the International Skydiving Hall of Fame. Our first presenter tonight is the current president of the United States Parachute Association. He served 24 years in the U.S. Army Special Forces Green Berets, retiring as a Chief Warrant Officer 4. He holds an MA in International Relations from Webster University, as well as in Security Management. He holds every military and civilian rating with regard to instruction and/or training, including FAA designated parachute rigger examiner. He's a 5-time Guinness World Record holder for most parachute jumps in 24 hours, and in 2009 was the recipient of the Stephen Bannock Gold Medal for contributions to the sport of skydiving. He is still an avid and active skydiver with over 24,000 jumps. Please welcome Jay Stokes.
Can you hear me in the back? All right. Well, I get to start the show a little bit, and I get to talk a little bit about a very close personal friend of mine named Pat Moorhead. Now, everybody knows that Pat Moorhead started off jumping when he was about 37 years old. A little long in the tooth to be starting, but that's okay. And everybody knows that he started the California Aerial Circus, which in 1972 was a demonstration team, and it's still active today. By the way, Pat's a very good accuracy jumper. As a matter of fact, on a SOS event in Elsinore, he landed on top of a motorhome, if I remember right. Right, Pat? But enough about that. I love this guy for a couple of reasons. One is he's... Okay. Okay. I'm going to speak slower so the old people can hear me. Wait a minute. I don't think there's any old people in here. Anyway, the reason that I love Pat so much, he came to me, he said, I'm going to turn 80. I want to set a record. I want to do it in California on my 80th birthday. And what's really cool about Pat is that he did this event. He jumped more than 80 times in a day, and he set a California state record at the time. And the fact is that the shirts that he gave us, they didn't say Pat Moorhead. They said Team 80. And that says a lot about him as a person. He understands that you can't do things without people to help you. You've got to have an organization, a support crew. And that's what makes him a great skydiver. He understands that we have to have that support. When I approached him about trying to get him into the Hall of Fame, he asked very specifically that Alicia be part of that. And I said, well, Pat, I can't submit Alicia's name with yours, but I can submit yours. What makes Pat a superior skydiver, though, is that he loves Alicia dearly, and she is his support crew. And Alicia, you make him a superior skydiver. You really do. Now, with all that said, I would like to ask the newest inductee into the International Skydiving Hall of Fame for 2016, Mr. Pat Moorhead, to come on up.
This portion of the program is brought to you by Sun Pat Products. Make every jump an odyssey. The SunPath student. SunPath quality. Skyhook equipped. Less than $2,400. See your SunPath dealer for more information or go to sunpath.com.
Jay was quite an inspiration when I did the 80 jumps on my birthday, 81. And I would have never tried it without knowing that that man made 641 jumps in 24 hours. Nobody will ever beat that one. I think I'm going to sort of really say some of the things Jay just said, because I am so pleased to be on this stage. I'll start by saying this. I'm so pleased to be among this class with some of my very, very best and good friends, Morrissey and DeWolf and Bagley and so on. It could have been better to be in this particular class this year, and I'm really pleased about that. Really. And I want to say a little bit more about this teamwork thing. I've always felt that our individual accomplishments are not achieved alone. It takes a team and teamwork. That thing we did with the Team 80, everyone knows how I feel about that. That was absolute teamwork. And I'm fully aware that I didn't make it to this stage by myself. Dozens of family members, hundreds of friends, and thousands of skydivers all over the world have been with me all the way to right here. They've encouraged me, inspired me, and supported me as I made my way here to be recognized for my career in the sport. So they are the reason, you are the reason, all of them are the reason that I'm up here tonight. And this is the part that Jay stole from me. I want to say that the single most important person in my team has been my sweetheart, Alicia Moorhead. She's been my life partner on this journey. She's the most positive person I know, and being with her has made me a better person. Thank you, Alicia. Finally, thanks to the Museum Board of Directors for deciding that I was worthy of this honor, and I proudly accept it, and thanks to all of you for your continuing support. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Please welcome Chris Needles.
Sir, I salute you. Larry is all about service. As long as I have known him, which is most of my adult life, he has been unrelenting in doing the right thing for skydiving and skydivers. As I have said before, if you want something very hard done and done right, you go to Larry Bagley. And you don't get politics and fanfare, you just go to Larry. He is skydiving's go-to guy. I thought this morning that maybe I don't know who was ever going to take Larry's place as a Bagley and as a leader. Well, I got the chance today to see 19 of the Bagley clan make wind tunnel rides, and 5 more made tandems. And I can tell you there's a lot of talent there. So it's with great honor and pleasure that I present one of my closest lifelong friends, Larry K. Bagley, for induction into the International Skydiving Hall of Fame.
I really appreciate the honor and the experience of being here in front of all of you. I'm very humbled by this experience. It's almost overwhelming. You've seen my resume in the book. You've heard Chris talk. It's really flattering, and I really am happy that the most part of my life I've been involved in skydiving since I can remember, for sure. But like any journey, there are milestones along the way, and I'd like to just recognize as I go through this some absolutely almost unquantifiable contributions some people have made to help me get where I am and be who I am. It started with the USBA board when I ran for the board in '74. My good friend Jack Atkins is here that said, go run for the board. As soon as I got on the board, the one who showed me more wisdom on how to be a politician is my friend Kurt Curtis. Bill Otley was huge in all the time that I spent as the president, especially. We had a great relationship, I think. B.J. Worth, we had some great times together and did some fun things, some good things. Jean Paul Thacker, he'd sit there at the board, and of course, as the chairman of the board, read the paper at the corner of the table. When that paper dropped, you knew you better be right on what you're talking about or you're going to get your ass chewed. And Chris Needles, right from when we first served on the board in '75, Chris immediately established a position that was enviable. He was wise, he was quiet, he was precise, he understood the system, and he really helped me as I continued on the board. Bruce Wicks and the Golden Knights, the Alumni Association. It was a proud evening when mine and Cindy's name was called by Sergeant Major Mike Eitner, Ike, to be a Golden Knight, and we love the relationship we have with the U.S. Army. Graham Windsor, as I was serving with the IPC as a technical secretary, another very wise, astute individual that understood the system and was willing to help as we went along. Really precious time, and like I said, almost unquantifiable, the contribution it made to my career. But I gotta say, as much as I really love skydiving, I've got a really wonderful family. I've got my son here, Christopher, and his wife, Mary Ann. I have my favorite oldest daughter, Angie, and her husband, John. My middle favorite daughter, Adrian, and her husband, Scott. And my favorite youngest daughter, Amanda, and Ian, the new skydiver of the family. So we've passed the baton to the second generation, and then we've got 11 of the 12 grandkids here. 4 of those made a tandem jump this morning, so we've passed it now to the third generation. I love the kids, love the family. Been a great, great inspiration for me as I've grown. I'm gonna try to not tear up here, but my single best friend, the best thing that ever happened to me is Cindy Jones Bagley, and I really appreciate what she's done for me. The grandkids call her the active grandma. She's probably the reason most people will even talk to me. She is the best thing that has ever happened to me, and I really appreciate what she means to me and what she's done for me. She's shown me patience. She has still not taught me patience. She's working on that. But I have the basic understanding of patience, and I'm working on it. I realize I don't have a lot of time left either. But I want to quote Chris Needles as the new chairman of the Hall of Fame committee. When he received his blue jacket, he said, "While I'm truly honored with this award, I will not consider my work done until we have our museum to capture forever a sport, a lifestyle, and a band of brothers like no other. Let's make this happen." Thank you very much.
Please welcome Bob Mell.
2 jumps that he really loved that he was on was Lou Sandburn's 50th jump and Jerry Bird's 10,000th jump. From Dave and to all the people that he has met in his life, he wishes on blue sky. Now I'd like to present Dave the Wolf for his induction into the Hall of Fame.
This portion of the program is brought to you by Paragear, serving skydivers since 1960.
I'd like to shout out for 3 people who aren't here anymore who really helped me. When I first started rigging courses, the only people that I knew that ran an organized course was Ted Strong and Dan Pointer. And I would call them to ask them for advice. And they were so helpful. The one thing they told me for sure is, no matter what them students tell you, don't think they know anything. And they were right. The other guy that was my friend for 100 years and always helped me out with rigging things, who's not with us anymore, who I really miss, who was also the rigger here at Eloy for many, many years, was Wayne Snyder. If anybody remembers him. And he was a fabulous rigger. Fabulous rigger. Okay. I'd also like to thank the backing I had from my clubs. Like the United Parachute Club, Home of the Herd, that was our team. And people said we were pretty good skydivers, and we were also better partiers. And the truth of the matter is, those other guys got me in a lot of trouble. I'll tell you the truth. I was always a good guy, you know. Anyway, and also, the Maytown Sport Parachute Club, which even to this day, when I run my course, they come and bring the stuff down from the attic and help me out all kinds of ways. Now, I'd also like to shout out to, over the years, I mean, this is my 45th year or whatever doing this stuff, I've had great instructors. I like to for all the instructors that helped me, and I've had a lot of them, and a lot of them are here tonight, but including Bob, you know, and without my instructors, I'm nothing, really. They're the greatest. Okay, now that I got that done, I had to make a speech, so I said, for my speech, I think I'm going to tell just a jump story. And this is not any jump story. This includes the greatest benefactor for this organization, Bill Otley, everybody remember him? And it includes Joe Smith, who's the guy that started me with this rigging thing, like Bob told you. And it includes me. So it's one of those years at Zephyr Hills, the 10-way speed competition, and a lot of us got there early. We said, let's have a fun 10-way speed star. And we organized it, and me and Joe were going to go out and beat a base, et cetera, et cetera. So the jump goes on, and we get a 9-way, and somehow me and Joe are next to each other. Where's Otley? Here comes Otley zooming in between me and Joe, crashes between us. As he crashes between us, he's going into the middle of the star. Joe grabs him, whips him back, and I grab his other arm, and we have our 10-way. And Bill Otley's making all these faces. We used to call that zooing. And, you know, we thought, he must be really happy, you know, that he got the 10-way and blah, blah, blah. And he's making all these faces. And so everybody opens up, and we land. 4 hours later, I see Bill Otley. He's got this huge bandage on his hand. What happened was, when he crashed through the star, Joe grabbed him by his thumb. And as he yanked him back, he broke his thumb. So he's sitting there with a broken thumb, making all these faces. And he was mad. He was upset. And Joe said, I can't understand why he's upset. I made him look good. Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate everybody being here.
What I learned from Bill quickly is just what tandem could offer the skydiving community, and I really fell for it. Neither Bill nor I knew then how close our friendship would become and what great friends we would be. He's been my boss and my roommate, my wife's best friend. He's in his video as much as she was in my video, and he's still one of my best friends. Not all we've done together were the best of times, however. Like the time he took me to terminal as a passenger when we did the student tandem examiner certification course up in Montana. Scared the hell out of me. Or the time he convinced me, we were filming a military video at Zephyr Hills, and he convinced me to go backwards as a tandem passenger for a tandem examiner who turned out to be blind in one eye. And our landing at Z Hills in no wind condition was like a 747 with its gear up. We had dust all over the place. And I'm not even going to go into the golf experience in North Carolina and the freezing drizzle and rain that he insisted we play golf together. But we've traveled the world together, mostly for tandem, after he appointed me his first tandem examiner in 1987. And because of Bill and the trust he had in me, Cindy and I were teaching tandem certification courses all over South America, in Europe, Indonesia, Iceland. And I'll never forget the time in China. We spent a month there teaching the tandem course, harmonizing with Bill in his tenor voice, Irish tenor voice, so that is. Let me call you a sweetheart in the back of a rickshaw in the drizzle rain. Very romantic. It is impossible to quantify the valuable lessons I've learned and great times we've had because of our friend Bill Morrissey, and in my opinion, as a new chairman of the Hall of Fame at Nomination and Selection Committee, he epitomizes the essence of who should be honored by the Skydiving Hall of Fame. One who contributes a significant amount of time over a long period of, a significant amount over a long period of time for the benefit of the sport. That's my friend Bill Morrissey, and I'm proud to introduce him to the International Skydiving Hall of Fame class of 2016. Bill Morrissey.
mid-'60s, there were some intrepid skydivers who were taking children for skydives stuffed in a harness with them. Okay? Now, these people were doing this stuff for about 10 years. And in 1975, a couple of adults, friends of mine, got into a single harness and made one of these types of jumps, just like the children were making. Okay? And I just happened to call them one day and said, you know, hello, how you doing? Haven't seen you in a while. And Gloria and her husband, Pete Chase, D61, he's been around also. They started telling me about their experience. And she only had 10 skydives, but she did say that she really desperately wanted to jump a square canopy, no matter what the price. If it killed her, so be it. So, and I thought that was pretty wild for a young girl. She only had 10 jumps, okay? But she captivated me with her wild tale of climbing into Pete's harness and then jumping from a Cessna 206 at 15,000 feet. You imagine that? They had never done any of this stuff before. But the canopies were real junk. It was a Stratostar main, and of course, a really hot dig, Strong Enterprises 26-foot LoPo reserve. And, but anyway, Gloria filled me with the excitement of her jump, and I wanted very much to do the same thing. Okay, she had me on the edge of my seat as I listened to the complete story, and I decided, I'm going to make this happen. Over lunch with Ted, he accepted the concept as a way to put an instructor in a harness with every student. He gave me a hug, and I quote, he told me, "We will never lose another student." That, ladies and gentlemen, is the kind of person that Ted Strong was, a lovely human being whose only motive was student safety. My contribution was pushing Ted to initiate the transition. Initiated he did. He was the first one to build a parachute system designed to take two adults on what was to become known as a tandem jump. I've been a part of tandem since the day I heard Gloria's story and through Ted's first double jump, that's what he used to call it, in January 1983. And through my 18 years as an instructor examiner, and up to this very day, I've lived and I've loved every moment of it. My two introductory tandem jumps with Ted, plus everything that he knew, took 2 hours. That's including the plane rides up. Okay. After 2 hours, there I was. I was an instructor. I was an instructor examiner, and I was a tandem program. And I had absolutely no background whatsoever. Okay. So anyway, we just didn't know what we didn't know. We didn't know what we were getting into. The major setbacks we encountered when we put two adults in one parachute were encountered on my third jump, which was the first jump I ever made with a passenger. This is the only jump story I'm going to tell you, okay? We left the DC-3, which is Southern Cross, at 14,000 feet and quickly left Norman Kent, our cameraman, far behind us as we accelerated to a new kind of experience at 180 to 190 miles an hour. Having never gone this fast before, I activated my spring-loaded pilot chute at 6,500 feet. Well, the opening was a tremendous shock. I looked up to see the canopy was destroyed. 8 A-lines were broken. And here came Norman taking pictures. I bust out laughing in a situation like that. I couldn't help myself. My forehead was cut up and bleeding, and my passenger, Neville, was whining about his back. Since I opened early, I had time to tell Neville to stop whining about your back and take a look at your 335 square foot main parachute, which is in tatters. But I wanted him to see it. He moaned even louder, and then I knew my sense of humor was intact. Since I started to accelerate, I decided to cut away and deploy our 270 square foot F-111 reserve. Unfortunately, one main riser would not release, no matter what I did. So I knew I had to deploy the reserve I knew I would have to deploy the reserve to the destroyed main. Well, I was looking at the Grim Reaper at that point. So what did I do? Okay? I suddenly got religion. I actually looked up in the sky. I looked up at the heavens, and I promised that I would definitely be a good boy if he would get me out of this one. Okay? And that's That's the truth. That's exactly the way it happened, yeah. And so I fired my reserve, and obviously somebody up there likes me. So that's why you find me here today. It was pretty wild stuff. The airspeed was too fast. Ted introduced the drogue concept, and he made tandem jumping doable. The defective large ring had elongated, causing a malfunction in tow. Ted forged stronger hardware for tandem jumping. We needed a better canopy, so Ted built stronger canopies, 425 square feet. Okay? One of Ted's concerns was that I was training instructors by riding as their student. I had to convince Ted that it was the most effective way for me to be able to monitor them in the airplane and assist them in free fall, if need be. This technique was the best way for me to demonstrate my confidence in the training program, my confidence in the tandem equipment, and my confidence in the candidate themselves. As I appeared to be putting my life in his hands, that's where my red hair went to. The objective of the certification course is to give the candidate the tools he or she will need to safely take tandems on an introductory skydive. No one ever managed to convince me that two expert skydivers in a certification course, having the same amount of training, could not manage to open a one parachute. Okay? Therefore, every tandem instructor candidate had to jump as a passenger for another candidate in the course or with the IE or with a current tandem instructor. Or they did not qualify to jump as an instructor with a student. And this is the way I saw things. If you're afraid to do what you expect your zero experienced student to do, which is to put your life in the hands of another, then you do not qualify to have someone else's life entrusted to you. That's what I believed then, that's what I believe now. Unfortunately, Ted's prediction of never losing another student was to have bitter results. Tandem's not a carnival ride. It's a very dangerous endeavor. A new kind of demon appeared in 1993 when we experienced a tandem side spin fatality. It occurred while the jumpers were on a strong system, so I was the one who investigated. I promised the Finnish people that I would study the videos, make exploratory jumps, and try to find out what caused these side spins and how to avoid them and how to recover from them. Having lost two skydivers, I was understandably nervous. It took almost a year, but I presented my video of my solo investigative jumps and premeditated side spin jump with Chuck Archer at the 95 PIA Symposium. Sorry about that. Anyway, I thought the tandem community would reject my determination that the tandem instructor arching hard would make things worse rather than being a solution to the problem. You could hear a pin drop in that room during my lecture. Our community embraced my findings, and today, 21 years later, the resulting video is still being used worldwide in the training of tandem instructors. Being a tandem examiner is a calling. It's not a patch to be worn, nor a status to be walked around with, okay? If you want to have that status, you have to do the job. Let me offer this. The best way I know of for examiners to do that job is to give the candidates everything you have in your heart and everything you have in your head. Jumping with them is an essential part of what we do, both the safety and the confidence parts. In closing, I would like to share one thing with you that I pass on to the examiners to whom I lecture. It's a quote from Special Forces Medal of Honor recipient Franklin Miller. After the war, he spoke to his instructors, as we do, saying that you need to accomplish two things with those you are training. The instructor candidates must understand that you have the information they do not have and that you want to share it with them, very much as we skydivers do. Next, you have to convince them that you have their well-being foremost in your mind. Well, that's also what we do. You must be genuine in your concern, for if you are not, they will see right through you. Well, we show our candidates our concern by jumping as their students. If you show them these things, they'll follow you into hell. Well, that's not exactly what we're trying to do. We're just trying to get them to follow our safety procedures and to be professional.
This portion of the program is brought to you by Fisher Space Pen, American dependability.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my friend Norman Heaton.
Dr. Fitch, Doc Fitch, was Vice President of the United States Parachute Association, PCA, for 4 years. He was President for 4 years. He was Chairman of the Board for 2 years. He had 10 years of service, of which he gave the most stable leadership that we had in those very tumultuous times. He was a unique character. And I guess the guy that knew him the most was the former president of the Hall of Fame, Lenny Potts. You know, they were kind of like the Gold Dust twins, or I call them Flim and Flam. And I can remember in 1965 when we was up in Washington, D.C., and we were combating the airlines about trying to get rid of skydiving. You know, the airlines had thought at that particular time that birds shouldn't even be flying in their particular area. And we were very young. We were very, well, it was a young organization. We were not that, we only had about 5,000 or 6,000 members at that particular time, but we had leadership. Fitch was vice president at the time, and he gave a talk to the FAA in this big hearing we had. But the night before, we had a big meeting, and we was all getting our acts together, who was going to do what, and so on and so forth. after this meeting and when all this was determined, we retired to the bar. Well, I'm at the bar, but Lenny Potts and Ed Fitch were sitting at this table with this lady, and it turned out to be that this lady was the senior writer for Time magazine in the Washington office. And I'm sitting there, I said, between the two of them, I said, we're going to have my picture on the front cover of Time magazine. I found out that the conversation went like this. Lenny Potts says, this is Dr. Edward Fitch. He has found out the cause of sickle cell anemia. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is 1965. This was in the Johnson administration and the Great Society, and Appalachia and the poor people in the South and Appalachia were not getting the medical attention that they needed. And this lady from Time magazine said, you got to be kidding me. Lenny Potts said, no. Dr. Fitch knows what causes sickle cell anemia. And this goes on, and she is just ecstatic. And she finally turns to Dr. Fitch and said, what causes sickle cell anemia? He said, well, it's the glue off of licking food stamps. Well, we did not get a very good report on skydiving at that particular time. But that's the type of humor that Ed Fitch exerted, and it was the type of calmness that he had at this time when we needed so much direction. Calm leadership, good decisions, and it was a great, great honor for me as executive director of the association at that particular time to work for this man. He could run a board meeting like nobody else could ever do. He didn't put up with no nonsense, and he got things done. I am so happy to be here to represent this man, and in honor of all the years that he served PCA and USPA as president, I would like for the present president of USPA, Jay Stokes, to come and accept this award to be placed in the office of the United States Parachute Association. I thank all of you for all that you've done. I thank you for all the friends that I have here. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. And I hope that you remember Dr. Fitch from this day forward. Jay, would you come forward, please?
Please welcome D83, Bill McCarthy.
I recommend to all of you that you pick up a copy of his autobiography, which is titled ETA, The Pioneering Days of Skydiving. ETA, for those of the uninitiated, is short for Estimated Time of Arrival. Well, I would like to say, with everything that Dick's accomplished now, you certainly have reached your estimated time of arrival, and you've done a wonderful job doing it. We're fortunate today to be joined by Dick's lovely wife of 40 years, Linda, and by his two accomplished daughters, Jennifer and Amanda, both of whom, surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, are also fully qualified helicopter pilots. And they fly Block Blackhawks, and they've had several combat tours abroad in areas that none of us want to be. I want to welcome you here and bless you all. Enjoy the celebration, and let's party. Thank you.
And don't mind the time, forget all that's been. Get lost in a park, find a tree that will last, find a secret path that leads to our house.
As a young boy being raised in Banning, California in 1956, they used to have a thing between movie theaters called the newsreels, movie-tone newsreels. And I watched this group of people in Little France jump out of an airplane and fall almost out of sight before they opened their parachutes. And I said to myself, I don't know how or when, but I got to do that. And that's when I got the bug to start skydiving. Went into Special Forces initially, went to jump school with them. And we started the Strategic Army Corps parachute team. Colonel Bill Greaves, who started it, said, we're going to start this and it'll be special duty, just nothing but skydiving. You want it? I said, yes, sir. Well, he said, it comes to our attention, you only have 3 months to go in the Army, so you're going to have to re-enlist or something. I said, how long do I have to make up my mind? He said, about 30 seconds. So I re-enlisted for 6 years, spent all that time on the U.S. Army parachute team. And in that period of time, as you heard, won 3 national championships and the World Championship. One of my finest accomplishments are sitting right over there. The 1962 women's team. I was asked if I would train them. I'd broken my collarbone and I couldn't train myself. So they asked me if I would help train the women's team. So it didn't take a whole lot of training. They were really good. But they ended up winning the World Championship overall. And, of course, Muriel won the gold medal overall. And I was really proud of that. But like everybody else, I want to thank my lovely wife, Linda, my daughters, Jennifer and Amanda, for their support all these years. And thank all you people for being here tonight. And I appreciate you for voting me in on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody, and I'll see you next year.
This is the conclusion of the 2016 International Skydiving Museum Hall of Fame event. Next year, we will bring you coverage of the event from Chicagoland Skydiving Center. See you in September of 2017 for that event. In just a few short weeks, the best skydivers in America are going to come here to battle out for their national championships. For the 2016 USPA National Championship, right here at Skydive Arizona. We'll bring you all that action, all that coverage. Stay tuned with us here at Skydive TV. My name is Bo Reeby. Thanks for watching and good night.